The Heavenly Warriors organization is the largest martial arts association in this world, having a high status in wushu, and her presence attracts the attention of many. This union is hidden by many unique martial arts and secrets, accessible only to a select few, and however, for ordinary people this is simply an opportunity to earn a living. Nowadays, when it is difficult to find opportunities in this field, the martial arts palace becomes an ideal place for professional activities. It doesn't matter your background or abilities, and if you're willing to put in the effort, there will be a place in the organization. Even if you can't become a professional boxer, there is an opportunity to become a partner. Right now, a professional fighter is preparing for a fight in the training ring. His sparring partner is a young guy. The fight has been going on for quite some time. The fighter's face is covered with sweat, testifying to his efforts. His partner also looks exhausted, but he must not be distracted, as a missed blow could have negative consequences. The boxer continues to attack with a series of powerful blows, and the guy deftly deflects them with his special gloves. Although this sparring partner is not like the others, it is nice to work with him because of his experience. But the boxer still has a lot of strength, and he continues to put pressure on his opponent in the ring. Those watching in the ring are amazed to see these two fighting with such passion as if it were a world championship fight. Someone from the crowd shouts to Chen that he only has 20 seconds left until the end of the fight. The guy's strength is running out, but he does not give up, continuing to hold his hands in front of him. Respect for the hero is deserved, because an ordinary martial arts lover could not stand such a fighter. Chun is no ordinary amateur, as he is the champion's sparring partner despite his low rank. The gym captain calmly watches and smokes a cigarette, seeming to not care about what is happening. The fight continues. There are only a couple of seconds left until the end of the round, but in this sport you cannot relax. Suddenly a gong sounded, signaling the end of the confrontation. Both fighters showed their best. The man regrets that time has passed so quickly. The last blows seem weak to him. Chun warned him that the last few strikes were too hasty and could lead to adverse consequences. A few minutes later the guy headed to the locker room, and after such a battle, he needed recovery, and a local doctor helped him. This gloved fighter was powerful, but injuries are inevitable in boxing, and if a shot is missed, there is no point in blaming anyone but yourself, and if this happens, then you're probably just not good enough. A cut appeared on the guy's face. He needed a plaster, and however, the doctor did not have it, and then Chun suggested that he had seen the necessary thing in one of the lockers. This patch was left by an injured boxer a month ago, and Chun had an exceptional memory, remembering even such small things. The doctor asked why the guy dropped out, given his ability to get into a good university, and maybe this would avoid having to fight for pennies and work for my uncle. The guy silently nodded slowly, his face expressed sadness, and the doctor thought that perhaps he had said something wrong. Then the doctor said that he himself dreamed of becoming a boxer, but his health did not allow him to do this, and he clarified that becoming a professional fighter can lead to the rank of captain. Chin believed that he was not going to become a captain, but the doctor supported him, saying that he had potential, and then the conversation was overheard by the current captain. The two were discussing the current captain, considering him to be worthless, and in their opinion, he has only thoughts of his own benefit in his head. If it were not for Chin, Xiaobo would now be in full health, and however, due to a lack of proper ammunition for training battles, he suffered an injury that could have been avoided. It would be much more favorable if someone else played the captain's role on the team, and after all, there were many talented fighters in their training hall. As the day passed, the streets began to be shrouded in darkness, and our hero had to hurry home to avoid disturbing his loved ones. However, before heading home, he had to step into the pharmacy, where the elderly owner, recognizing Chun, warmly greeted him. Grandfather knew the guy for a long time and was aware that his little sister was sick, and he promptly selected the necessary medications and wished a speedy recovery to the girl. After a little time, the hero found himself at home again, and his sister, while he was outside, was enthusiastically watching TV, and, hearing the sound of the door opening, rushed uncontrollably to the entrance. With a joyful expression on her face, She hugged her brother and expressed boredom, and Chun reminded her that she should not jump so unceremoniously, but having fun together was more important. The girl promised to cook dinner, and so Chen headed to his room to rest a little before eating. Tired to the limit, he sat down on the bed, taking his time to undress, and there were posters of his favorite fighters in the room, whether they were real people or characters from games and comics. Exhausted, he didn't even want to waste the effort of taking off his slippers, so he simply kicked them off, lying on his bed, ready to rest after a busy day. After that, a quiet snoring was heard in the room, and the hero fell asleep in just a few seconds, completely immersing himself in his favorite dream. When Chan was about to fall into a deep sleep, his thoughts were still revolving around his desire to improve his fist-fighting technique and analyze various tactics. The scene moves back in time, many years ago, when the streets were covered with large snow, and a girl with a child in her arms walked along the road. Suddenly she notices how someone cruelly left the baby just on the side of the road, and the child was wrapped in a blanket and lying in a cardboard box. Without hesitation, she decides to take the child with her, and after all, she could not leave him there. It was just pathetic, and any normal person would have done the same. The girl continues her journey with 2 children in her arms, and she is noticed by passing women who recognize her. 2 gossips are interested in what is happening and begin to find out where she got her second child, and whether this ugly girl really got another one. There had been bad rumors about her for a long time, and her father kicked her out of the house because she became pregnant before the wedding, which was a great shame for him. But the young mother did not pay attention to this gossip, and she did not care what others said, and she would definitely raise this boy as her son and put him on his feet. Over the years, the children grew up and became a real family, and one day the girl happily ran to her mother to show off her excellent grade on a test. The woman reminded her that she was in rather poor health and should not run around like she was scalded and scream as loud as she could. Her name was Linka. She was holding her brother's exam paper in her hands, and she really wanted to show that he managed to score the maximum number of points. But the boy himself was shy and did not understand why his sister was bragging about someone else's grade, because it was not such a great achievement. The girl perceived the situation differently, and in her opinion, such success should be loudly announced, because she never managed to score such a high score. After that, her mother hit her on the head and remarked that it would be better for her to follow the example of her older brother and not put on a show. In fact, the woman was proud of her son, and he studied well, and she is sure that in the future he will definitely become an outstanding person, and no one will look down on him. Chun is a little embarrassed, and he has never liked being praised, but he is pleased that he has someone who sees his achievements. Suddenly, the hero opens his eyes, and it turns out that this is just a dream in which he relives his old happy memories. Now he faces a familiar ceiling, and because of what he saw in his dream, he wonders whether he is doing the right thing by choosing his passion for martial arts over his future institute. Meanwhile, dinner is being prepared in the kitchen in full swing, and Linka is almost finished cooking, and her brother better hurry if he wants to have anything left for him. The girl radiated joy, turning to her brother with a question about the quality of his sleep and general condition, and his brother confirmed that everything was fine with him and he felt great. Chun woke up under the influence of a pleasant aroma, anticipating the imminent preparation of food, and in a little patience, and a delicious breakfast will be ready. Tasting the dish using chopsticks, the hero delicately assessed each piece, and the girl was looking forward to his opinion, putting all her love into the preparation. The taste of the dish was a real revelation, which is not surprising, because cooking with love always brings great results. There was an unusual voice in the guy's head, which sometimes helped him in his studies, and it was a secret that he kept silent about so as not to bother his mother. Chan dreamed of being able to use this voice to gain admission to university and subsequent successful employment, to escape the long years of poverty in which their family lived. He hid this feature from his mother so as not to cause her concern, although sometimes he really wanted to share this secret. Thoughts about a future at university and a prestigious profession collided with the need to find a way to cure Linka, which could take a long time. Before pursuing a successful future, Chun decided to first find a way to help his family, especially his sister Link. Morning workout in the gym was the first step towards achieving his goals, and there were already other people in the hall, including his friend Wei. Wei looked worried, but did not discuss his feelings, and the hero simply said hello and headed to the locker room. There he found his acquaintance, severely beaten, and Chin's appearance caused tension in the air. It turned out that an evil rival named Golden Pear appeared in the hall today, and Chun will have to be careful. The team captain approached Chin and told him that he would be a sparring partner for the Golden Pear, and this was an unusual situation, given the difference in the ranks of the boxers. Everyone approaches Golden Pear's sparring partner very carefully, but Chun has always been brave and decisive. The captain directed Chin to go to the fourth ring, where his opponent was waiting for him. The hero was perplexed why exactly there. The captain insisted that Chin hurry up because his opponent was already waiting, and the situation seemed strange, but Chun obeyed. Upon entering the ring, Chun learned that his opponent would be the boxer who beat his friend Xiaobo the previous month, and why they were placed together remained a mystery. Chin's brother began to worry, not understanding why they were brought into such a dangerous situation, and both the exchanges of their opponents Mad Dog and Iron Wolf sounded threatening. The captain calmed him down, reminding him that Chun received the nickname Golden Pear for a reason, and his previous training with bikers showed that he is ready for difficult tests. The meeting in the ring promises to be beneficial for both participants, and the man assures Chun that he intends to give him a well-deserved bonus in the middle of the month. Before starting the fight, the guy clarified whether his opponent complied with all the rules of the training match, excluding attacks to the torso and throat, and a weary training partner may demand a pause in the fight. The captain assured him that everything would be fair, given the presence of many spectators, and the hero puts on gloves and prepares to enter the ring. The training is limited to half an hour, and the Mad Dog asks if Chan is the one everyone calls the champion bag, and I heard that Chan is quite experienced. However, the guy is focused on something else, and apparently, this man was looking for a partner not just for training, but for self-affirmation at the expense of others. Suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by a powerful right hook, and miraculously, he manages to block this blow without preparing for it. The blow is so strong that his arm instantly goes numb, like a Mad Dog not 2, but perhaps 3 or 4 ranks higher. This is immediately followed by a second blow, again to the right, and Chan dodges this attack by ducking. Suddenly, his stomach receives a strong blow from his leg, and the hero did not expect this at all, because such actions are prohibited in training battles. The guy flies to the other end of the ring, and it occurred to him that this guy seemed to have gone crazy. In this fight, strength played a huge role, and half an hour of continuous blows at full force threatened Chin with internal hemorrhages. This guy should have thought twice before trying to take over as captain, and the man smiled, watching what was happening with pleasure. Chin said stop, and the kick seemed to have severely disrupted his concentration, and he needed time to recover. Everyone around suggested stopping the fight because one of the fighters had broken the rules, but the captain decided not to interrupt the fight, and why, it seems, the Golden Pear does not give up so easily. The Iron Wolf justified his brother, saying that he just increased the blow a little, and I don't care what kind of sparring partner who can't stand it a little. The fight continues, the man delivers a rapid series of blows, and the hero avoids them with all his might. But the difference in strength is too great, and Chun will not be able to maintain this pace for long. The Mad Dog smiles with satisfaction, and he understands that if this guy misses even one direct blow, he will fall. The attacks fly like a machine gun, and with every second the situation becomes more and more dangerous, and this can only be sustained by skill, which is honed by daily training. At one point, the man remembers last week's fight, in which he suffered a knockout loss. It was really driving him over the edge, not just last week's failure, but today's fight with this guy he just can't beat, and he wants to finish everything right now. Mad Dog delivers another powerful blow, and his attacks are getting stronger and stronger, and it seems that something is wrong with his head. It becomes increasingly difficult to parry these blows, and the man does not hesitate to use kicks, which in this case were prohibited. After one of these blows, the hero flies into the corner of the ring, and it was so strong that he was seriously injured and bleeding came from his mouth. But the mad dog is not going to stop, and instead, he rushes forward with a mad look, trying to complete his work. This time it's an unusual right hook, but a combination of several quick punches, and if a guy misses even one, he's finished. The man seems to have inexhaustible energy, and he doesn't stop or slow down from the very beginning of the fight. Mad Dog has been boxing for many years. He knows that if you continue to press without stopping, the enemy will surrender sooner or later. At some point, time slows down for Chen, and in front of his eyes is only the enemy's glove, ready to fly into his head. A voice in his head warns that the guy's life is in danger. His skull will be broken in half a second. Thanks to this warning, the hero miraculously dodges, but now one of his gloves lies on the floor. The situation is becoming increasingly tense, and he cannot effectively repel attacks, and if the man gets hit even once, everything can end badly. The instinct of self-preservation kicks in, and there is only one thought left in your head, and that is to survive. On an instinctual level, he feels that there is a chance to carry out a counterattack right now, and there's no time to think, it's now or never. Chan is not going to die today, and he hits the opponent with full force right in the jaw. The counterattack is brilliant. The man falls to the floor with a loud sound, blood flowing from his mouth. Everything happens so quickly that observers don't even have time to see anything. At this time, the hero spends all his strength trying to stay on his feet. The blow has severely battered him. His comrade rushes into the ring to help him, and at that moment the guy almost lost consciousness. The captain is not upset by what happened. In fact, both options suit him, and now he has a reason to get rid of this brat. He also gets up and asks Chun how he allowed himself to attack the boxer, and this is a gross violation, and now he will have to revoke his license as a sparring partner. But Wei turns to the fat man, asking if he is blind, because everyone saw that it was the mad dog who began to break the rules, and just a little more, and the hero could remain disabled for life. At this moment, the guy comes to his senses and is horrified at the thought that perhaps he has now taken a person's life. And even though he had no choice, it was still terrible. No conclusions can be drawn yet. The mad dog is seriously injured, and we have to wait for the doctors, and all we can say is that now the hero may have problems. After all, the Iron Wolf certainly doesn't ask for this, and therefore, you need to notify the management of the sports club as soon as possible. Chan, meanwhile, should take a good rest, and he also needs urgent medical attention, and no one knew how serious his injury was. When a sparring partner hits a boxer, it is considered a serious foul, and if the hero's guilt is proven, he will definitely not have a career as a fighter, and it is urgent to record the testimony of witnesses. Iron Wolf can't believe his eyes, and how could this little daredevil do this? And his gaze becomes as crazy as that of a boxer during a fight. This brat knocked down his brother, and now he wants to get away with it, and a man cannot allow this. And right now he is going to take revenge. But he is stopped by the hero's comrade, and for a long time now he wanted to test his strength with such an opponent, and if he wants to harm Chun, he will have to fight with him. A few minutes later, the club management arrived at the scene along with a doctor, and they do not intend to find out who is right and who is wrong in this situation. The captain immediately starts saying that the guy broke the rules and hit the boxer, and for this he must be severely punished, and we need to make a good example out of it. The hero explains that he just used the necessary defense, and the mad dog was the first to break the rules and wanted to injure him. One of the visitors notices Chen's hands, and neither of them were beaten until they bled. And can this be called normal boxing? And if a man enters competitions like this, it spoils the whole face of this institution. The director of the hall looks at the guy's hands, and oh nay, they really bleed. And there isn't a whole section of them. In order to figure it out, it was decided to check the injuries and be sure to extract video from surveillance cameras. The doctor says she can examine the mad dog right here, and she has everything she needs for this. She puts on medical gloves and prepares to climb into the arena where the man lies. The guy recognizes her immediately, and that pretty young girl is the head doctor of their martial arts palace, and he hopes that she will not explore any strange places. The doctor makes a diagnosis very quickly, and due to a blow to the throat with the edge of the palm, the mad dog lost consciousness, and he urgently needs to be taken to intensive care. Otherwise, he may soon die, and therefore, the man is urgently placed on a stretcher and an ambulance is called for him. After this, everyone goes to the control room to watch the CCTV footage, and they clearly show that the hero used self-defense. Now no one doubts that it was the boxer who broke the rules and entered the ring simply to beat the man, and his partner was simply defending himself. The girl's name was Shinyu, and she was worried about another question, and the mad dog during the fight looked simply crazy, as if he was under the influence of some kind of illegal substance. Wei was sure that Wang Tingwei had built everything, that was the name of their captain, and it was obvious that he rigged the fight and gave the boxer a prohibited drug. But the man immediately began to make excuses, and why did he have to do this? And he said that for such slander you could get punished yourself. But how then could one explain why Chun was assigned to a fighter who was several levels higher than him, and something that has never happened before? In fact, this thought came to everyone who watched the fight, and it is impossible to argue with these facts. Everything was obvious. Other visitors to the hall even guessed what substances we were talking about, and most likely, these were blood pills. Such dope is quite difficult to get. Talk began to be heard everywhere that Wang Tingwei had already gone completely crazy with his connections, and how could he give this medicine to a mad dog? But Shinyu argued that if the man really took such pills, then most likely it would not be him who was in the hospital now, but a hero. The club director greatly regretted that he had appointed Wang Tingwei as the captain of the team of sparring partners, and he handled it simply disgustingly. In the end, everyone agreed that it was the mad dog who first broke the rules, and the guy went beyond the limits, and since they have laws that say that fists and feet have no eyes, and when you enter the ring, you must realize that at any moment you can lose your life, and anyone who is afraid of death has no place in their martial arts palace. But it was necessary to take into account one more point, and boxers were the main asset of their club, and it is they who bring him popularity and income. And since the hero, being in the status of a training partner, paralyzed one of the fighters with his blow, he must bear responsibility for this. Now, starting today, it will be Chen who will take over the role in the ring instead of Mad Dog, and this shocked the guy. The Iron Wolf was happy about this, and after all, his brother agreed with the organization for 15 competitions, and now this brat has to compete in his place. But the hero's friends did not agree with this, and after all, the guy was just a sparring partner, and a very low-rank one at that, and how could he replace an experienced boxer? Comrade Chun, who helped him up when he almost lost consciousness, offered himself as a boxer, and he was ready to do it for him. The director did not deny this option, but, nevertheless, the hero instilled a sense of guilt through his action, and now he bears responsibility for it. That is why a comrade can only participate in 10 competitions, and in the remaining 5, Chun will be forced to fight alone. Leaving the place, the man indicates that the guy should come to him after recovery to conclude a contract. When the director left, Chun felt a growing danger, as if an aura of death was hovering around him. After that, they headed to the first aid station, where the hero, who could barely stand on his feet, needed support. The hero admits to his friend that he should not have interfered, because it was his action that led to the boxer's injury, and now he will have to bear responsibility. But Wei assures him that there is no need to worry, because he is more experienced, and the additional 10 competitions are just a test. In addition, Qian is reminded that something serious could happen to the guy, and then who will take care of his younger sister, and the responsibility is not only for himself. Chen agrees, but still apologizes to his comrade for dragging him into this situation, and he replies that thanks to the hero he has achieved such a level of skill. Shun Yu was already waiting for him in the ward, informing him that he could sit anywhere, but he needed to be carefully examined. While dressing his wounds, the doctor wonders why she helped him, and she replies that it was all because of the mad dog. The girl says that perhaps because of her kindness, it was difficult for her to watch him being deceived. That is why Shinyu decided to help him get out of this situation, but Chun does not yet fully understand her intentions. It was easy to prove the mad dog's guilt, and it would be enough for Chun to pay the fine, and Wang Tingwei would take the main responsibility. But the guy had no money, and then everything could have been resolved through a lawsuit, but he was in a hurry. Xinyu asks him to be honest. Is he really confident that he can withstand the whole 5 competitions? Suddenly the guy, as if awakening from a deep sleep, realizes that he has to fight with real boxers 5 times. Things are pretty bad, and Chun wonders how he was able to get way into this situation without realizing it beforehand. The club director named Paul has been monitoring this whole situation for a long time. Incredibly, it turns out that it was Wei's abilities that he was interested in, and Chun was only used as an excuse to sign the contract. Paul watched the duel between the hero and the Iron Wolf with great interest, and Shunyu noted that the patient quickly realized everything, emphasizing that the hero was far from stupid. In any case, the Mad Dog was the director's subordinate, and his intention to deal with Chun was pure truth. Now it is important to think about the fact that if the guy does not advance, he most likely will not be able to withstand even 3 competitions and risks dying in the ring. All this time, Chun was wondering what Paul's intentions were and why the director staged this entire performance. The girl said that her shift was over, and she wanted to quickly return home and rest. Saying goodbye to the hero, she asked him to be careful, and however, Xinyu handed him a small piece of paper at the last moment. It was written on it that the guy should appear tomorrow at 9 a.m. on the 18th floor of the Clear Moon Gallery, and Chun could only guess what this could mean. The next day the hero walked down the street and carefully read the contract that the director handed him, and he had to carefully study this document. But in the end, he had no choice, and even if the guy refuses to sign the paper, he will only worsen the situation of his comrade, and now he will have to put his life on the line. However, you can't focus only on the bad, and since today, Chun has earned some money, and now he has to go and buy medicine for his sister. But suddenly, when he almost reached the pharmacy, he heard loud cries for help, and somewhere nearby someone attacked a woman. It happened in a nearby alley, and the man with the tattoo on his arm tried to drown out the girl's screams, and she begged him to let him go. But the villains did not listen to her, and trying to free herself, the girl bit the hand of one of them, but this only worsened the situation, and she was hit. The attacker then pulled out a knife and threatened the woman, telling her to be quiet and calm or things would only get worse for her. In any case, even if she screams, no one here will hear her or come to her aid. As soon as the pervert finished his monologue, he abruptly tore off the girl's clothes, and at that moment, Chin entered the alley and ordered the villain to let the girl go. The man replied that the guy shouldn't mind his own business. He looked poor, perhaps even without money. The second attacker continued to open his arms, and the hero decided that he needed to act. It was useless to talk to such freaks. He rushed sharply at the second villain, and with one powerful kick threw him several meters away, and M-Man fell into the trash. The first bandit decided that Chun needed to be dealt with urgently and attacked him with a knife. But Chun easily intercepted the slow blow, and this scoundrel ended up on the dirty asphalt. After this, a couple of idiots dared to complain about broken ribs and demand compensation for their injuries. The hero turned to the girl and advised her next time to go along the street where there are more people. Such places are very dangerous. The guy then helped her put on her jacket, which she had lost while defending herself from an attack by 2 villains, and now she better go home quickly. Suddenly the girl's expression changed to a smile, and she rushed towards Chun, thanking him for saving her, and who knows what would have been done to her if not for him. At one point, the hero felt that the woman was too close, and a voice in his head warned him of danger. It turned out that the girl had a knife hidden under her dress, and the guy quickly realized that all 3 belonged to the same gang, and this was part of their insidious plan. He had to act quickly. Chen hit the attacker in the chest with his elbow, and this time he was much faster, and thanks to this he remained unharmed. The girl dropped the knife on the ground, and her accomplices ran away in fear, and we were surprised how this brat understood everything so quickly. The woman also ran after them, and once again the hero was saved by this strange voice in his head, and although he had heard it since childhood, he still did not know where it came from. Evening soon came, and Chun went to the pharmacy to buy medicine for his little sister, and this time he had the opportunity to purchase better drugs. The seller offered him 20-year-old ginseng root, and was even ready to give him a discount, given the difficulties the guy faces. Therefore, he was ready to sell the medicine even at a loss, and the hero cordially thanked the seller and also bought a couple of fish, and the broth prepared from them turned out to be very useful. Thanks to these medications, little sister will soon feel better, and the owner of the pharmacy advises Chun to take care of her and not allow unnecessary stress. When the guy was almost at the house, he suddenly stopped and called Huadian, a small white cat with orange ears. This cat had one peculiarity, and instead of the usual meow, it made sounds similar to the squeaking of a mouse. In addition, for some reason she did not grow, although she ate perfectly, and Chin regularly brought her fish, which he bought at the pharmacy especially for her. The cat had been living in the park for 2 months, and apparently had no place to return, and the guy decides that she is worth taking home. When he looks at her, it seems to him that she seems to be a reflection of himself, thrown to the mercy of fate, and he wants to help her the same way he was once helped. However, Chin suddenly changes his mind, and he remembers that he will soon have to devote all his time to training, and it will be difficult for him to fully care for the cat. Moreover, the cat turned out to be so strange and mysterious that it might have been able to live on its own, but it was already too late. The animal did not want to let the hero go. However, she did not follow him. On the contrary, as if she was trying to show Chen something and was leading him, trying to show him the way. It seemed as if the animal understood human speech, and at some point the guy thought that he might be hallucinating due to injury after a fight with a rabid dog. But curiosity won, and he followed the cat, and having walked a little deeper into the park, they discovered an unusual plant with orange fruits. Suddenly the animal bit off the flower with its teeth and put it in Chin's hand, and maybe she wanted the hero to eat him. The answer was not long in coming, and with a satisfied expression on her face, she nodded, like a real person, and her appearance was really funny and mysterious. The guy thought a little, and after all, it was an unknown berry, and however, he decided to trust his furry companion and ate the fruit. Immediately after this, strange things began to happen to him, and it was as if his whole life flashed before his eyes. All the good and bad memories surfaced in his memory. Chen also felt that an extraordinary power had awakened in his body, and he had never experienced anything like this before, and due to the overabundance of emotions, he even shed a tear. As a result of this, the hero lost his sense of time and space for several seconds, surprised by the tears on his cheek. Suddenly, an inner voice speaks to him again, telling him that he can use his new power for good purposes and see it as a reward for his kindness. The voice turns out to be the same as in the ring with the mad dog, and this is, of course, not a cat that continues to make its strange squeaking sounds. Suddenly, all the fatigue that had accumulated during the day disappeared, and Chen felt cheerful and joyful, and he rejoiced, anticipating many more pleasant surprises from this voice. At this time, Linka went outside to look for him, and it was clear from her facial expression that she was offended by her older brother. Chen immediately understood the reason for her dissatisfaction, but asked her why she left the house despite the cold. The guy returned home half an hour later than usual, and Linka was very worried, and he made excuses, saying that he worked a little longer today. But he had a gift for Linka, bought on the way home, and that gift promised to help her feel better. The girl was surprised, thinking that it was a 1,000-year-old ginseng, but it turned out that it was only 20 years old, and the 1,000-year-old hero is not yet able to overcome this. Sister understood that such medicine was expensive, and Chun probably worked hard to buy it. But the hero assures Linka that she should not worry, and Orphan was not so expensive. The main thing was her recovery, and now they need to go home and cook dinner. On the way home, 2 guys met them, and one of them, with a cigarette in his mouth, immediately recognized them, and rumors that the brother and sister were adopted sometimes affected their relationship. For some reason, the guy with the cigarette thought that the girl had stolen expensive medicine from the pharmacy. This 20-year-old ginseng root is worth more than 20,000, but Linka claims that she did not steal anything, and this was given to her by her older brother, but the bully doesn't believe that a foundling is capable of earning that much. Suddenly, the conversation was interrupted by Chen, and he decided to teach the upstart a lesson and sent him to the asphalt with one precise blow. The hero warned that they can call him whatever they want, but they should not say anything towards their mother, and especially their younger sister. The guy's name was Gu Ming, the son of a pharmacy owner, and his father went out to see him. The man asked Chun why he was doing this, because they were even distant relatives, and the hero did not want to hear about it, even though Gu Ming was his cousin. The pharmacy owner's son did not recognize this woman as his aunt, and he didn't see the problem with calling her a fallen woman. At this moment, Chin breaks down and rushes at him, saying that he has no right to say such things, and the father tried to set the guards against the hero. But the hero found a way out by taking out his contract, warning the men that there would be consequences if they dared to cause harm. Now, as an official boxer for the Heavenly Warriors Club, he is accused of stealing the root. If something happens to him, they will have to compensate for the damage to the martial arts palace, since their fighter will not be able to compete. The men dared not do harm, and now the brother and sister can safely go home after a hard day. The guys prepared dinner, and Linka prepared a decoction from the root, and Dad was cool today, and she told him about it. Chin advises her to talk less and pay more attention to her medicine due to her poor health. A ghost suddenly appears from the jewelry on the girl's neck, very similar to her as a child. The hero does not understand who this girl is, but she and her sister seem to share the same space, and why did he start seeing her? This is who Linka was talking to all the time, and it seems she wasn't talking to herself. This girl is a ghost, and the guy probably sees her from behind the berry. Suddenly, the sister realized that her brother also began to see his little friend, and they were both surprised. Chin confirmed that he now has 2 girlfriends. The hero wants to thank the ghost girl for always being there for his sister. Little Linka was not a ghost, and she could even be felt. Chin promised to earn even more to provide for both of them. He needs to win 5 competitions, cure his little sister, and provide for his family. Wang Tingwei was attacked in a dark alley, and the captain looked beaten. He was set up. He begs for his life, explaining that he was framed. The Iron Wolf framed him because of his injured brother. The Mad Dog has lost his reputation as an excellent boxer and is in serious condition in the hospital. The Iron Wolf will send both Wang Tingwei and the one who hit his brother to the hospital, and Chun will definitely answer for his actions. At some point, the attacker released the captain, giving him hope of salvation, but everything turned out to be more complicated. The Iron Wolf did this on purpose, trying to break his victim not only physically, but also mentally. Mad Dog's brother paid the bullies to beat Wang Tingwei even more, and for him it has already become a little boring. The next morning the hero went to the gym and started training on his own. Chin tried his best, practiced his kicking, and greatly improved his skills thanks to the magic flower. Now he had to be very careful to survive 5 fights and remain unharmed. Suddenly his friend runs towards him with a frightened face, talking about the emergence of huge problems. It turns out that the first opponent will be the Iron Wolf, and this is strange, given his experience and high rank compared to his brother. But for some reason, they were put in the ring together. Chen remembered Xin Yu's words, and there is now no doubt that she foresaw everything when she advised him to be very careful. After this, the Iron Wolf himself joined them, noticing that the baby had turned pale with fear, as if he had seen a ghost, and he was warned by 2 henchmen not to scare this boy to death before the battle. The man with a smile on his face assured that everything was fine, and after all, from the moment the hero crippled his brother, he essentially already considered him dead. The Iron Wolf noticed the punching bag from the side and decided to demonstrate his incredible skills, and he kicked her hard. As a result of this sporting maneuver, the instrument was torn into pieces, and it was not just a bag of sand, but as much as 200 kilograms of a sports weight bag. Chun was amazed by what he saw, and his roundhouse kick was so precise, It was as if a pear had been cut with a knife, and it is obvious that the Iron Wolf has been training hard for many years. The man's reputation was justified, and that blow weighed at least half a ton, and his assistants were confident that he could deal with this guy in a few minutes. The Iron Wolf shared information with the guys that the captain had a bad fall yesterday and was now in the hospital, swallowing tons of pills to survive. Wei instantly realized that this guy was the one who beat up Wang Tingwei and now just came to play in front of all his muscles. At this moment, the hero was thinking that if he missed such a kick, he would have a very hard time. However, he still had hope in his inner voice, and after all, he just managed to fix this technique. This display provided an opportunity to reveal his unique move to his opponent, giving the guy an even greater chance of winning. At this moment, Chun was too deep in his thoughts, and Wei asked him a question about the strange smile. After all, now there was no time for laughter, and it would be better to think about how to resist the Iron Wolf, perhaps even develop an escape plan. The hero didn't even want to think about it, and even if he manages to escape, he could forget about a quiet life, and the organization had connections all over the world. Besides, he was a boxer who had signed a life and death contract, so he had to accept this challenge. His comrade noted that they were just self-taught and would never be able to withstand such experienced boxers as the Iron Wolf, and yesterday he fought with him and knew about it firsthand. Chun didn't want to think about it, believing that the main thing was to study hard and train a lot, and then your potential will be literally unlimited. Wei should have taken better care of himself, and after all, 25 more fights awaited him, and he could have suffered even more than the hero. After this, the guy said that he had an appointment with someone and he would have to leave for a short time. Now Wei heads to the 18th floor, where Shun Yu invited him, and she seemed very mysterious, and he wonders if she just helped him out of pity. The hero initially doubted the veracity of her words, but now all doubts have dissipated, and hope remains only in her. When Chun finally reached the desired floor, he was amazed at the luxury of the place. This was probably the floor where the most powerful people in the Heavenly Warriors organization resided, which explained the atmosphere. Suddenly a guy turned to him, claiming that the hero was probably on the wrong floor and should leave. How dare this guy wander around the 18th floor, and it's better not to catch his eye, otherwise he can be quickly kicked out with broken legs. Chin replied that he was invited here by Dr. Shunyu, and he could not leave, since they had a meeting planned, and the girl was now waiting for him. The guy with blue hair didn't quite understand who he was talking about at first, and he might have been referring to Master Shun, but Chen didn't look like her disciple. However, he still decides to take the hero to the girl, hoping to take advantage of the chance to communicate with her. Suddenly, the hero felt a huge force emanating from the man in front, and an inner voice warned him of enormous danger. It immediately became clear that this guy was on a completely different level than even the Iron Wolf, and perhaps all the warriors here are so powerful. Upon reaching the desired room, they encountered numerous guards, and apparently, Shinyu had an unusual position in the organization. Her status was definitely higher. A guy with blue hair named Lin Guofei decided to introduce himself and talk about his fighting style, also inquiring about the hero's style. However, Chan was not even aware of the existence of different styles, and he introduced himself and stated that he was simply an ordinary sparring partner from the first floor. After this, Lin Guofei was finally convinced that the hero was an ordinary person without prospects and potential, and he is not interested in the hero at all. A few minutes later, they reached the girl's room, and Lin Guofei informed her that he had brought a guest, and she allowed Chen to enter. Lin Guofei advised the hero to rejoice, because the mentor gave him the opportunity to meet her, and not everyone gets this chance. Chen immediately noticed that Lin Guofei was not indifferent to Shenyu, and he probably likes her, and maybe he even feels some jealousy. Upon entering, the hero was very surprised, and he didn't expect to see his friend working out, and it seemed that she was not only a doctor, but also an excellent fighter. Shenyu was not just a boxer, but energy surpassed even that emitted by the guy with blue hair, and it was clear that her passion for training was off the charts. The girl had been training all this time on a special simulator for honing her blows, and with a koro she completed the training and greeted her guest. Chun felt a little embarrassed in such an environment, while Shinyu assured him that they could feel at home and invited him to come in, and I was about to make tea. The girl had a pronounced stern face, but at the same time she managed to look very sweet, and in all likelihood, this was not the most affectionate person. The tea was soon ready, and Shunyu treated her guest to a fragrant drink, and the aroma of tea was very pleasant. However, the taste turned out to be a little strange, too bitter, even worse than a special medicinal decoction, and it occurred to me that perhaps an ordinary person could not drink this. However, Shunyu seemed to enjoy the drink and took several sips as if nothing had happened. And, as if that weren't enough, she noted that the taste was quite fresh, and perhaps she should have added more tea leaves, and the hero was shocked. After this, Shinyu asked the guest if he already knew who his next opponent would be, and Chin replied that he was already aware of the Iron Wolf. This fighter was a professional from a special training camp. He had also undergone training in the Shaolin style, and his strength was superior to Chin in both attack and defense. Simply put, the hero was not expected to win such a battle. However, I didn't intend to throw my hands up, and there is always hope, and in this case there was no exception, and Shan Yu's catch inspired Chun. The girl was ready to help her new friend improve his skills, and after all, if a guy fights in such a state, nothing good will happen. The hero could not understand why the girl so easily decided to help him, and this seemed very strange, and it seemed to him that she was planning something. The guy decides to contact her directly and find out what's going on, and it seemed like it was really a deal, but overall nothing special, and Shinyu just wants to make a deal with him. The girl promises to teach him boxing, and in return he must help her in one matter, and the heroine is interested in what exactly we are talking about. But it remained a secret, and first he needs to survive the first fight, and then they can discuss the details. This decision was reasonable, because within 3 days Chin expected a battle against the Iron Wolf, and if they beat him, there will be no deal. But the hero still had one question. Why would someone like Shinyu even pay attention to someone like him? The fact was that the girl saw in him talent in martial arts, and also appreciated his moral qualities. But the most important thing was that the guy was very cunning, and in fact, he managed to put the mad dog down with a weak blow. By the way, Shinyu already perfectly understood what power the hero now possesses, and after all, she was an experienced doctor and determined this by the intensity of his pulse and breathing. At this moment, Chin remembered the words he once heard from his coach, and only one who can easily recognize the strength of his opponent can be called a master. There was no time to wait, and the girl was going to show several techniques, and the guy was full of curiosity, not knowing what exactly awaited him now. It turned out that it was a special fighting style called Wing Chun. The first rule to remember was that in any hand-to-hand combat, the important elements are strength and skill. The hero had to learn a piercing blow that creates destructive energy, and the girl was going to demonstrate it, and then he had to repeat it. This was necessary in order to cope with the powerful muscles of the Iron Wolf, which he had trained for many years in a professional boot camp. Shinyu took a stance, concentrated on her right hand, and launched a punch that was extremely powerful. The energy was so precisely focused that an ordinary swing of the fist turned into a powerful weapon, and the gift wave could travel several meters. The girl repeated similar blows at high speed, and even her eyes found it difficult to follow everything, and the guy decides that he must memorize every movement of her muscles. He used his unique ability, but suddenly he is faced with a situation that confuses him greatly, and for some reason, when he copied a person's movement, all his clothes disappeared. Shinyu completed her series of blows and was ready to show them to her friend a second time, and it was impossible to remember everything at once. Suddenly she notices that Chin's face is as red as a tomato, and the girl is surprised and asks what happened to him. The hero tries to justify himself by lying about the fact that he just ate too much ginseng yesterday, but in fact, he is fine and his master can continue. Suddenly the girl makes a blow right next to her student, and the guy is very surprised, but he needs to come to his senses, because they don't have much time. The hero needs to be more careful, because Shinyu will not repeat this technique more than 3 times, and if he wants to learn something, he needs to make an effort. Chun understands this and is ready to do whatever is necessary. After several approaches, the girl explains to him the essence of the fighting style, and gains strength from the ground and move it to the lower back and other parts of the body. As time passes, Shinyu finishes the demonstration, and the guy can finally breathe a sigh of relief. But now he needs to quietly get rid of the napkins he used to wipe the blood from his nose. The master asks the student if he remembers everything, and he needs to train to consolidate the acquired knowledge. Chun promises to do his best and happily throws out the trash, and this is his only chance to cover his tracks. From his confused face, it became clear that such techniques were still too complicated for him, and you still need to train carefully and learn the basics. Then the two of them went to the girl's uncle, and the possibility of receiving a gift from him was small, but it was worth a try. The man was playing a classic board game, and his uncle lost to Lingua Fei for the 4th time in a row, and I guess he wasn't at his best today. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and Shun Yu walked in, and the guy with long hair rushed to the door to open it, but his uncle stopped him. He noticed that Lin Guofei has been walking abnormally lately. Perhaps he has been missing a lot of training. The niece should take the horse's stance as soon as possible, remaining in this position for at least 6 hours. Probably, the man got angry because of the lost games in the board game and decided to get even in this way. At this time, the niece and her friend were already inside, and the girl was going to ask her uncle for a favor. They agreed that if Shunyu carried out the plan called Dragon Rising, the man would give her a very valuable item. The uncle remembered all the details, but asked his niece if she was sure that this thing should be given to this particular guy, and they only had one try. The girl claims that she is completely confident in him, and in appearance can often be misleading, and the man notes that Shun Yu is impatient, but in principle he has nothing against it. In any case, you need to give this item to someone, but the uncle warns that he can only help his niece once. A few minutes later, they invite the hero into the room, and M-Man is going to test his skill, and after all, he had somehow caught his niece's attention. As soon as the master raises his hand, Chun immediately feels incredible strength. This power was severe, and it was impossible to contain it with his abilities, and the hero just needs to relax. The master notices that this guy is not trained in inner style, and probably, you shouldn't injure him in order to avoid troubles in the future. So the master removes his spiritual power and gives the box to the guy, and then the power instantly disappears. Chin realizes that the old man is probably an influential figure in the organization, and now he has given him a unique item. The man is disappointed in him and doubts that the guy will be able to resist the Iron Wolf, and the niece was probably mistaken. The girl says that her uncle should not torment himself with a choice, and if she thinks her friend is suitable, that's enough. After saying goodbye to the master, they went their separate ways. It seems that Shinyu and Chen were quite calm. However, when they left, the girl's behavior changed dramatically, and she looked very worried. The hero asked his mentor if everything was okay, and it seemed like Shunyu was just glad that she was able to deceive her uncle. Chin was surprised at how valuable the box was. Inside was a potion called Blood River Pill, used to build the foundation. The uncle had only 3 of these tablets, and one of them now belonged to the hero. The guy was lucky, and he was grateful to his mentor, but it seems like he has to try all sorts of weird things. When Chin returned home, he looked at the gift for a long time, and it is incredible how such a small thing can be so valuable. At first, he wanted to give the pill to his little sister, but that turned out to be a bad idea. The pill can only be consumed by those who are full of strength and health, and the girl is too weak and she may not be able to stand it. The guy didn't even tell his girlfriend about it, but she somehow guessed it herself, and the girl already knew how to read him like an open book. Judging by the hero's physique, after consuming the pill, his strength should increase, and the remaining effects will appear during training. At some point, Chin realized that he had been thinking about this for too long, and he even had a headache. You can't give this thing to Link. Let the pill help him become one of the best fighters in the country. After eating the pill, the hero felt an intense heat in his body, as if every molecule was burning. The power tore him apart, but he felt an overwhelming energy. Linka was watering the flowers when her brother rushed out of the house, looking strange. The girl asked what was wrong with him, but he just continued to do push-ups on his fingers. He managed to do 300 push-ups without feeling tired. Chun had the feeling that he was now several classes higher as a boxer, and the story of the Bloody River is truly amazing. Suddenly they pour water on him, and it turns out that it is his sister, and it seems like my brother is overheated and needs to cool down. 3 days pass, and today the battle will begin in the martial arts palace of the Heavenly Warriors. The referee greets the guests, and the first round of this highly anticipated fight is about to begin. Everyone who came to the boxing competition at the Martial Arts Palace made a wise choice, and the organizers prepared an excellent fight. An iron wolf appears on the screen, and the organizers introduce the fighters to the crowd. This man was the best student of the 38th graduating class of the death training camp. He has 8 wins and 0 losses. The Iron Wolf strikes fiercely and lightning fast, with the nickname Knife Bearer, and he is a fierce competitor and is popular for his style and ruthlessness. The crowd cheered when he appeared on screen. Boxing fans adored him for his special style and ruthlessness. If the Iron Wolf takes the fight seriously, Chun may face a dozen of his techniques, and the question is whether the hero will survive this battle. The Iron Wolf's signature style was a 2-knife-like footwork, and now he enters the hall. The crowd erupted when he stepped in front of them, and his popularity was at its peak, with everyone eagerly waiting to see him defeat his next opponent. The presenter understood that there was no point in talking much about the strength of this man, and let us take a better look at the daredevil who will fight him today. This boxer was the sparring partner of the gold medalist of the Heavenly Warriors organization, a young guy with incredible ambitions. It is said that he is an outstanding newcomer from the cast of master pugilists of the Southern School. His name is Chen Su, and from now on he will try to prove that he is worthy of becoming a professional fighter. In 2 years he has mastered defensive kung fu, and it seems that there is simply no opponent he cannot cope with. Similar to the first time, the presenter asked the audience to loudly greet the hero with applause. However, there was dead silence in the hall, and the arena was holding its first official fight, and no one had seen it before or heard of it. Even the presenter was surprised by this reaction, and this was completely unethical, and he thought that perhaps he was just an unsuccessful presenter. But the hero was not upset because of this, and it was expected that he would not be recognized, but that did not matter to him. He still has something to fight for, and from now on, Chan will enter the ring and do everything possible to become the winner. The guy was not left without support, as his faithful friend Wei loudly shouted words of support to him, and now the guy felt much better. When you have a true friend, the opinion of an unfamiliar crowd ceases to be interesting, and it's good that the guy has such a person. A few minutes later, both boxers were already standing in the ring, and the long-awaited fight could begin at any moment, and the presenter was just waiting for the right moment to announce it. While the crowd shouted the name of the favorite in the confrontation, the man with blue hair closely watched what was happening. His name is Tang Jiang, and he is currently in the VIP box with other spectators, including He Pong, who is expecting to enjoy a good fight this evening. He Pin supports the Iron Wolf, confident of his victory, especially given his skill and footwork. Regarding Chun, there was talk that recently there were a lot of people like him who came not for the sake of making money, but for the sake of PR, but many consider them weaklings. Suddenly, He Peng suggested that Tang Jiang bet on today's match, because the Iron Wolf had never lost in 8 fights. However, the man with blue hair showed no interest in this, and he considered He Pin an ordinary show-off who did not understand the importance of such fist fights. Tang Jiang decides to place his bet, and his choice falls on Chenya, and those present were amazed. But the man knew that the masters of fist fighting of the Southern School are always capable of surprising. They tried to dissuade him from such a decision, pointing out significant differences in the physique of the 2 wrestlers. Tang Jiang laughed in response, because if victory in battles depended on height, then why would they even enter the ring? Hee-pung agrees to such a bet and states that if the distinguished guest wants this, then they will bet 100,000 on the Iron Wolf. There was intense staring between the rivals in the ring, as if an electric discharge had arisen between them. The referee reminded them of the rules of the fight, and in this life-and-death struggle, the loser is the one who leaves the ring or loses the ability to resist. At that moment, the hero realized why the Iron Wolf was so insistent on the duel. His hint was a hidden threat to kill his opponent. Finally, this moment has come, and if the guy can withstand at least 3 kicks, the man promised to spare his life, but will still cause irreparable damage to his bones. Chun noticed that the Iron Wolf greatly underestimates the enemy, and this should be used to your advantage to increase your chances of winning. Immediately after this, the girl with the sign announced the start of the first round, and the no-holds-barred fight began. The referee stood in the center of the ring and ordered the boxers to get ready, and a few seconds later the sound of the gong was heard. The battle began with the Iron Wolf rushing forward, while the guy preferred a more careful style and skillfully kept his distance. The man thought it was funny how this pathetic sparring partner was going to compete with him, and he couldn't even believe that he was relying on his tricks. The Iron Wolf decided not to delay, but to use his signature blow, performing his favorite kick technique with lightning speed. The man expected that after such a blow the fight would simply end, but to his great surprise, Chun was able to block this powerful blow with his hand. This unsettled him, and how was this brat able to master blocking such powerful attacks in such a short period of time? And meanwhile, the guy was preparing his counter-strike. The counter-attack was extremely successful, the hero easily reaching his opponent's face with his fist. The people in the hall couldn't believe their eyes, and the clear favorite had just missed a very strong blow, and the Iron Wolf looked completely different from his usual self. But the man was ready to fight, not going to give up, although he made a big mistake by letting his guard down and letting this newcomer hit him. Now he intends to respond to this one blow with 10 of his own, and they will be several times stronger. After this, a real flurry of fast and powerful blows began, but the hero still managed to avoid them. Even the presenter was amazed. At the moment the participant, who was clearly not the favorite, was successfully dodging numerous attacks from the Iron Wolf, and it was no coincidence that he was the sparring partner of the champions. The spectators in the VIP room could not believe that this was really happening, and perhaps their bet today will be a loser. In one of the man's swings, Chun noticed that his opponent was very tired, and this moment definitely had to be used. Therefore, the guy carries out a successful counterattack a second time, creating the impression that this newcomer and the famous Iron Wolf are equal in strength. But in reality the situation was not so optimistic, and the hero was aware that the kick he had just blocked had nearly broken his arm. If another such blow occurs, he may receive serious injury, with which further struggle will be extremely difficult or even impossible. Now he had to dodge his opponent's attacks, and he couldn't understand what was wrong with this guy, and oh, where does he get so much power, and he didn't even manage to hit it with his fist once. Chun tried to remember everything that Shun Yu taught him, and it was thanks to her that he could stand confidently on his feet. The hero once again successfully hits the wolf, using his girlfriend's signature move, and he still managed to learn this technique in a very short time. Now many of the fist-fighting fans in the audience had gone over to the guy's side, shouting his name and wanting him to strike again. At this moment, Chun assumed that if he managed to land at least one more successful blow, then victory would be his. Suddenly a gong sounded and the crowd became very angry. Why was the fight stopped right now? In fact, everything was according to the rules, and the judge announced that the first round of this fight was over, and the allotted time had just expired. Now the fighters needed to stop and disperse to the corners, and Arnie was unlucky a couple more seconds, and he would have become the winner. On the contrary, the Iron Wolf rejoiced, and he was lucky. This race literally saved him. Wei was very angry about this situation, and it was clear to him that if his friend had even had time for one more blow, everything would have been over. Shun Yu was also here, and it seemed strange that the round ended at that very moment, and perhaps there was something dishonest about it. Suddenly she notices that the club director is talking to the Iron Wolf, and maybe this man is making some plans again. Perhaps he bribed the judges in advance, and as soon as the Iron Wolf was almost put down, the fight was deliberately interrupted. The situation was very unfavorable for her student, and the guy spent a lot of energy in the first round, and he needed to come up with something. Suddenly, just after the end of the first round, the man began to cough, highlighting that the missed punches were starting to show. One of his assistants asked if everything was all right with him, and the Iron Wolf assured that everything was fine. This guy just took him by surprise. In fact, the Iron Wolf was now worried, and he didn't understand how this baby managed to become so strong, and he was determined that no one should know about his internal trauma. A few days ago, Paul told him that someone had already told everyone that his opponent had defeated the ferocious dog, and this seriously damaged the reputation of their training camp. Perhaps someone is trying to harm their school out of jealousy, considering that last year one of their students defeated all the fighters from the southern school. And currently, this girl is already representing her school in a martial arts tournament, and the director has convincing evidence. These were photographs of Lin Guofei from the 18th floor, which also included Chen, and perhaps they are the ones who conceived all this, and the main character is their man. Paul said that it doesn't matter whose person he is, the main thing is that their school regains its good name, and to do this, the Iron Wolf must win this fight. The man agreed with the boss, assuring him that he would defeat this young man in the ring, even if it cost him his life. Right now the Iron Wolf was in the toilet, reviewing this conversation and realizing that today, he simply could not lose. In this case, the man decides to use a prohibited substance and takes these red pills from his pocket, which are strictly prohibited by the rules. A few minutes later, the second round began, and the crowd, already very tired, cheered the fighters. As he climbed into the ring, the hero thought that the Iron Wolf had been seriously injured in the first half of the fight, and now he just needed to be careful. However, from his appearance, it was immediately clear that something was wrong. The guy's opponent looked very strange. As soon as the referee announced the start of the battle, the Iron Wolf instantly rushed forward, his eyes flashing red. Chen immediately noticed this, but did not understand why this happened, and it's possible that now his careful fighting tactics won't work. The man started the second round with his signature kick, and this time the technique was several times stronger. Because of this, the hero's left hand cracked, and under the influence of his opponent's illegal substance, Cheon did not have time to follow his movement, and he had to cover himself with his already damaged hand. The Iron Wolf was not going to stop and immediately carried out a second blow, as a result of which the guy flew several meters back. He hit one of the corners of the ring with force, and apparently, Cheon was seriously injured as blood began to flow from his mouth. But the hero was not going to give up, and he wiped the blood from his face and tried to respond with a blow, but the man easily dodged. The Iron Wolf instantly reacted to any movements of Chun, delivering his attacks. This situation was completely opposite to what happened in the first round, and perhaps now the favorite is decisively using all his strength. The crowd around him supported the man, convinced that he had finally started to fight for real, and Shen Yu realized that things were getting bad for her disciple. The guy has probably already lost this fight, and if he doesn't have some secret trick or plan, then it's all over. At some point, Chen guessed that the Iron Wolf was using a prohibited substance, and the power of his body has increased significantly, and he asked him if the man was afraid of being tested for doping. But his opponent didn't care, and he came not to defeat the hero fairly, but to avenge his brother. Right now the Iron Wolf is dreaming of putting the guy in a wheelchair, and this seems like just a one-sided reprisal. At the same time, each blow of a man becomes stronger, and as a result, Chun cannot withstand such pressure and misses another blow. Today, he sets out to restore the reputation of their boot camp, even if it means sacrificing his career or even his life. The Iron Wolf tries to step on the guy's face with his foot, but he dodges to the side at the last moment. The hero quickly gets to his feet and realizes that any delay could cost him his head, literally pressed into the ring carpet. Suddenly the full realization hits him that the man in front of him is actually serious about killing him. The man once again performs his signature kick, and Chun must find a way out of the situation, given that his left arm is already broken. The guy can only endure the beating and struggle to stand on his feet, which requires enormous effort. Right now, the Iron Wolf, masterfully using his pikes, is driving his opponent into a hopeless position, and the hero apparently has no strength left to retaliate. Wei sees that things are going too far and screams at his friend to quickly leave the ring, or he will be finished off. Xinyu is also very worried about her student. Her face expresses great anxiety, but unfortunately, she cannot help. But Chun is not going to retreat, because he can still stand on his feet, and therefore he is obliged to continue to fight until the end. After all, there are still people in this world who rely on him, and if he runs away now, he will not have the money to treat his sister. Also, the guy has already promised his mentor that he will win today, and this girl, with the kindness of her soul, did him a huge favor, and he is obliged to repay the debt. As soon as the hero thought about this, a picture that he saw during training with Xinyu immediately popped up in his head, and it looks like he came up with something. While his opponent doesn't want to stop, the man wants to send the guy to the canvas with an overhead kick, and the Iron Wolf wishes that this brat would never get back on his feet. The presenter and everyone present understand that right now the man is ready to deliver the decisive kick, and if he succeeds, the fight will end instantly. The guy continues to stand in place. He can no longer dodge, but he always keeps his word and spends enormous efforts to block the blow with his hand. Everyone present is shocked, and somehow this young man was able to withstand such a furious attack from an experienced fighter. Chun doesn't stop, and he gets a second wind, and he runs forward, and he manages to take advantage of the moment and hit his elbow straight into the Iron Wolf's jaw. Then blocks the man's right hook with his broken arm, against all odds. It looks like the hero is getting inspired, and he looks like the main favorite in this match and lands several punches to the opponent's body. Xinyu at this time cannot believe his eyes, and she did not show such a technique, and he could only see it once, when he first entered her room. It's incredible that her student was able to master this technique so quickly, and he really has enormous talent in martial arts. It was hard to imagine. In a few seconds, he was able to remember everything and was already fluent in the skill that his mentor taught him, and that was impressive. At that time, Chun continued an endless series of strikes on the Iron Wolf's body. All he could do was dodge and retreat. Now the man was all bad, and in close combat, this brat had an advantage, and he needed to get more distance. But the hero was so good that he was not going to give his opponent a chance to win, and there's no way he can escape. At some point the guy demonstrated something truly incredible, and his already rapid blows began to fall with even greater speed. The man tried his best to cover himself with his hands, but he could not do anything with such pressure, and as a result, the Iron Wolf missed a powerful blow right to the jaw. Because of this, he lost his balance and spent his last strength just to stay on his feet, and well, that guy has clearly already finished it off. Right now, Iron Wolf needs to find a way to end the fight with one blow, otherwise he won't have the stamina to continue. The man remembered one trick that he was taught at the academy, and he pretends that he is going to hit with his hand, but in fact he moves to the side and hits his opponent with his head in the chest. However, the guy was ready for this test, and it seems that he was trying to force his opponent to retreat, but even an Iron Wolf should dream less. The hero grabbed his opponent by the head, using a special fighting style, and threw him with such power that he flew several meters into the air. The man had no chance to get out of this difficult situation, and he ended up slamming his entire body into the hard floor of the ring. The audience did not even immediately realize what had happened. And can this newbie really beat an experienced boxer like Iron Wolf? Everything indicated that this was what happened, since the man lay motionless, and from the Udia approached him and concluded that he had lost consciousness. Ladies and gentlemen, let us warmly welcome today's winner with applause, and that evening it was Chun Su. The crowd just burst into applause, and this fight fascinated everyone, because people always love stories about the victories of the underestimated, and Wei was especially happy. While the presenter thanked the fighters for their performance, the hero headed to the locker room, where several more adventures awaited him. The guy found a corner to rest and leaned his back against the wall, and he felt very bad, and he tried with all his might to maintain consciousness. A friend approached him first and asked if he needed help, but soon Shinyu entered the room, ready to provide her medical skills. A small box easily slipped out of her pocket, inside which were special needles for acupuncture sessions. Chun was severely beaten, but acupuncture and moxibustion created special channels to improve energy and blood circulation. After a few minutes, the guy's breathing returned to normal, and he felt much better, and he asked his friends not to worry so much about him. The teacher highly praised her student, noting that he mastered all her lessons perfectly in a short period of time. The hero smiled, boasting of his unique ability, which helps him deftly respond to all situations. Shinyu was surprised to find that the guy was quite modest, and perhaps his ability helps him not only cope with pain, but also remain restrained. Wei was reading something on his fingers, taking into account the cost of entry to the ring of 20,000 and the percentage of tickets sold of 14,000. It turned out that the comrade was calculating how much Chen would earn for the fight, and even with the minimum estimate, the amount is significantly more than 30,000. Hearing this, the hero was so happy that he stood up from the bench too abruptly, and something pinched him tightly in his side. The girl claimed that his muscles in this place were torn, and he was all beaten up with injuries, and perhaps he no longer had the desire to continue the fight. Wei agreed with Shunyu, and at the moment the main thing for the guy is to heal well, and he can get the money at any convenient time. In fact, this evening of fighting has not yet ended, but almost all the spectators have already begun to leave, realizing that such a fight is difficult to beat. There was constant talk in the crowd about how much of an underdog this Iron Wolf was, going up against some rookie from boot camp and losing. Tang Jiang noticed that He Peng had underestimated this guy in vain, and appearances can be deceiving, and it is foolish to judge them only. Although Chen seemed physically fragile, at first glance it was clear that he had experience in martial arts, and he had every chance to cope. Another man, drunk, could hardly believe that he had lost so much money today. But there was no other way, and the loser must pay, and the problem is that he didn't have any cash, so he wrote a check. The loser tries to look as if his defeat does not affect him, and says goodbye with a smile, and the man had a good evening, but now it's time for him to leave. In reality, He Peng is hiding a deep insult, and how dare this stupid northerner mock him, and he promises him that he will regret it. Tang Jiang checked the authenticity of the check and was pleasantly surprised, and today the guy pleasantly surprised him, so he gives the paper to his assistant and asks him to give it to Chan. After the fight, in the martial arts director's office, everyone was discussing why the Iron Wolf was defeated, and it was not surprising. The boss gave him the opportunity for retribution and to restore the school's reputation, but this loser only made things worse for his boot camp. The situation has gotten even worse, and it is doubtful whether there is a way to fix it in this world. All this made Paul very angry, and at some point he could not stand it, rushed out of his chair and kicked the table with force. The furniture flew several meters away, and the roar attracted everyone's attention. And why is it so difficult for them to just think? After that, the director calmed down a little, and this time the loss of the Southern School Association meant the loss of a chance at a place in the North Star. Old Man Mingi is probably keeping an eye on Chen, and there were no explanations for his rapid growth and strength, and therefore it was impossible to quietly get rid of the hero. A competition participant cannot reduce his qualifications, otherwise all his efforts will go down the drain. At this time, Carl, his secretary, knocked on Paul's door, and when the fair-haired man entered, he was surprised by the situation. The head of the department calls the director. It seems that something important concerns the matter of the place in the Polar Star. Paul was speechless when he heard this, and maybe his teacher wants to give him a chance after all. It turns out that people from a community called Eden are offering a deal, and if everything works out, the director will have a chance to get a job. As for the hero, they will entrust the task of eliminating him to black assassins, one of whom, it seems, will be able to join the second round of the competition. When the guy saw the fee for participating in the competition in his hands, he couldn't believe his eyes, and even his hands were shaking. This turned out to be much more than his friend expected, and Chen received as much as 80,000, and the guy was delighted. Wei was also surprised at this amount, and I guess Tangjiang had a hand in this, and this man really does not spare money. With such an amount, it was already possible to say that my sister had every chance of recovery. Their conversation is interrupted by Xinyu, who is angry because of the noise in the medical room, and the girl orders them to be quieter. Now the hero needs to take a pill, and when a girl puts on glasses, she becomes strict, for some reason. Chen prefers her character without these points. As soon as the guy swallowed the pill, Xinyu invited him to follow her, and he was surprised, because he seemed to need a good rest. Wei asked his friend when they got so close, and even quietly, "And don't you do this to your best friends?" But the guy asked him not to talk nonsense, and he has nothing personal with this girl. Their relationship is limited to joint training. After this, Wei leaves, but asks the hero to teach him the cool techniques that he used in battle. When Qian entered his mentor's room, she took off her jacket and said that she wanted to reward him for winning the competition. After all, this is the only way he can reveal his potential in future battles, and the guy was embarrassed. Xinyu noticed his confusion and advised him to discard these thoughts, and he's just going to show the student a new technique. These are basic exercises for mastering a special strike in his fighting style, and one might think that the point is to gain a deeper understanding of his path. The last time he spied on the work with a wooden dummy, he managed to remember everything the first time and successfully repeat it. This fighting style is quite common, so if a guy wants to train his friend, it is quite possible. The hero continued to be surprised by his mentor, and how does she manage to be so attentive and hear everything around her? However, when it comes to rider stance and breathing techniques, even Chen will take time to master. The guy asked how important these elements are, and it seemed that if he had mastered them before the fight, victory would have come in a few seconds. This inspired the hero, and he was ready to give it his all, but now he needed to watch carefully. It would be nice to spar, but Chen was too exhausted, so they decided to postpone this matter, and the guy was grateful. In the evening, he could already go home, and he wanted to get better and start intense training, and Huadian appeared in front of him. The cat turned to him in her strange voice, and the hero was delighted to see her, and haven't seen each other for a long time. Suddenly, the animal began to hiss angrily, and it had two tails instead of one, and Chan fell in surprise. The cat rushed at him, but it turned out that she did not want to harm him, and I just wanted to get on my neck. Apparently, she wanted to go with the guy, and as if she understands human speech, and perhaps this cat has a connection with spirits. A few seconds later, they were already at home, and Chan called his sisters over to see who he had brought them. Linka and her little friend Snowflake were happy about the cat, and she was very sweet, and they promised to take care of her. Although they saw her for the first time, Huadian had already become like family to them, and the most interesting thing was that she had two tails. The animal was probably hungry, and Linka asked him to wait here, while she went to the kitchen to bring him milk. Suddenly something bad happened to my little sister, and she loses ground under her feet and loses consciousness for a moment. Fortunately, there was a sofa near her, and the girl was able to land on it, and her older brother tried to find out what happened to her. But he asked where exactly it hurt, but Linka assured that she was fine, and she's much better now. Just a little tingling in my side, and this happens often, and she is already used to it, and nothing serious happened. And, by the way, the medicine that the hero gave her helped her a lot, and the ginger root tincture worked perfectly. Linka apologized to Snow for scaring her, and Chan hurried to bring his sister a glass of water, and he already had to take care of her condition as soon as possible. Now that their mothers are gone, the responsibility lies with him, and the guy would never allow anything bad to happen to his sister. At this time, in one of the most luxurious hotels in the city, Tan Song came to Hepong, and it seemed as if the gentleman had personally invited him here. Noticing the quick arrival of his subordinate, the rich man called his assistant to bring the suitcase. There was a whole lot of money in the suitcase, and he needed Tan Song to teach one person a lesson, and he was willing to pay 200,000 for it. The customer showed a photo of his victim, in which Chun was clearly visible. 14 days passed. The hero diligently studied various textbooks on medicine all this time, but, unfortunately, did not achieve any results. There were diseases that could not be cured by either Chinese or European medicine, and for a fool like him, reading all these books was useless. The thought occurred to him that perhaps the cause of his sister's illness was Snow's little friend, who was something supernatural. Suddenly he remembers the words of Shunyu, who promised to help him find an excellent Chinese medicine doctor. The guy decides to immediately go to the martial arts palace and find his teacher there, and again he has to rely only on her. Walking through one of the many parks, Chin noticed a strange look from a guy in a yellow cap. It turned out that it was one of He Ping's spies, and he immediately informed his boss that the target was heading to the martial arts palace. The boss confirmed his understanding of the situation, and now the spy had to contact Tan Song to convey the exact coordinates of his victim. Soon the hero found himself at the medical office, and his girlfriend was enjoying tea at that time, and Chun knocked and asked permission to enter. Shinyu immediately guessed that the student had come because of his younger sister, and Chun was again amazed at his mentor's insight. In fact, his feelings were obvious on his face, and the guy was very excited, and his main desire was to find a good doctor for his sister. The girl has already studied Linka's medical history, and unfortunately, no one knew how to help her, not even an experienced healer, and the only hope was in Mo's needle. This is an old doctor from the medical community, but now he is abroad, and even if he agrees to come, it will take time. The question is whether this man can really cure his sister, and all the previous doctors claimed that she had an incurable disease. The Mo needle had previously treated similar cases, and the patient said that evil spirits had entered his body and upset the balance between yin and yang. But this requires not only a doctor, but also several Shaolin monks, and this is the only way there is a chance to help the girl. Despite the difficulties, Chun was glad that there was still hope, and whether the girl was telling the truth, he couldn't be sure, but he wanted to believe. Shinyu assured that this was true, but could not yet tell all the details, and the main thing is that they have the ability to treat Linka. After that the guy had to leave, and he asked his mentor not to worry about him, since he had to prepare for the competition. The girl believed him, but she told him something else, and the trick was to have a small thing in the hands of the student. This thing was called the all-seeing eye, and you had to put it on, and if something strange started, press the button. Thanks to this, Shun Yu will be able to see everything that happens around the hero within 30 meters, including video and sound. Chun didn't quite understand why he needed this, since he was already capable of standing up for himself, which he had already proven in the ring. But the guy didn't know much yet, and as an official boxer, in addition to competitions, he also had special assignments. Remembering the contract, Chun realized that it spoke of special assignments every 6 months, such as the role of a bodyguard. Chun wondered why Shinyu had all these high-tech things since she was a doctor. Suddenly, the girl takes out a special ID from her pocket, and it turns out that she is not only an excellent doctor and fighter, but also an employee of the department for especially important cases. The guy realized that he was in trouble, and now, if he does something stupid, he will immediately be put behind bars, and my friend is quite capable of this. After this, the hero leaves, and on the way he thought about his sister, and there is now hope for her recovery, but inviting the monks may be difficult. An inner voice warned him of impending danger, and a sound was heard behind him. When Chen turned around, he saw a man flying towards him, and the man managed to dodge at the last moment. It was the mercenary Tan Song with a mask on his face, and he had enormous strength. Even the ground under his feet cracked. Through a special device on the guy's body, the attack was noticed in Shan Yu's office, and the assistant told the girl that number 3 had been involved in an accident. The third number turned out to be Chun, and how did he manage to get into trouble so quickly, considering that he had just received the all-seeing eye? But there's nothing to do, and now he was attacked by a dangerous enemy, and, most likely, quite dangerous. The villain was clearly of high rank. His technique was perfect, and his legs were used as a whip. Where could this man come from? And oh, where does disciple Shinyu have so many enemies? And it was necessary to immediately find out his location. Shinyu immediately decided to go there, and the hero was a very important figure for her. She had spent so much time training him, and if he was killed now, all her efforts would be in vain. The incident occurred in a park nearby, and if you use a car, you can quickly get there. The assistant offered to call a taxi, but Shinyu decided to go on her own feet, and because the faster the better, and damn, the guy was in such a hurry. In fact, Shinyu was faster on foot than by car, and he decides to go right now. The nurse was surprised how this was possible, but her boss jumped straight from the 6th floor. But the girl had special abilities, and she landed on the ground safe and sound even from such a height. On the way, Shinyu tries to remember where she saw this man before, and he was probably a student awarded the regalia of a master of the northern school. He had studied kung fu under the old master for over 10 years, which meant that his strength was at a very high level. Her student had only been studying his direction for a few weeks and, of course, could not cope with such an experienced opponent alone. The girl moved incredibly fast. Her acrobatic abilities were no less surprising than her fighting skills. Meanwhile, Chun and Tansong were already in the fight, and it appears that the man preferred to use his legs as his main weapon. The hero had not yet fully recovered, and it was difficult for him to move and fend off many blows. His opponent notices that the guy is a rather primitive fighter. It is difficult to discern anything special and unique in him, just an easy prey. Tansong strives to quickly finish off his opponent, launching a series of rapid attacks, but he fails to even hit Chun once. This man's legs were incredibly fast. The Iron Wolf's kicks gave no comparison, and it was difficult even to see them. The hero is trying to come up with a plan of action, but it seems that he is seriously in trouble. And why did this happen right after Shinyu gave him this device? And oh nah, it seems she has something planned. And at that time the girl suddenly sneezed, and that was strange, because she wasn't sick at all, and maybe someone was remembering her at this very time. The mercenary did not give time to think and continued to strike, and the guy decides to use the technique of working with a wooden mannequin. To do this, it was necessary to completely relax the body and concentrate the energy of the earth at a certain point, and finally, everything works out. Now Chin can respond to attacks, but it turns out to be not as simple as it might seem. But suddenly the enemy disappears, and just a moment ago he was in front of the guy, and now he's not there. Tansong appears out of nowhere, and this was his special technique of a hidden strike, from which the hero does not have time to evade. As a result of the attack, the guy has a deep wound on his forehead, from which blood begins to flow. The advantage remains on the side of the mercenary, and the beginner cannot reach an experienced opponent with his primitive attacks. The guy loses his balance and misses several strong blows, and Tansong is sure that if he manages to hit the throat, it will be the end. The man tries to quickly end the fight, but the hero manages to block the blows with his hands. Chun not only stops the opponent's leg, but also grabs it, and now Tansong must retreat as quickly as possible. If he refused this, he was in danger of serious injury, and the man had no other choice in such a situation. It's amazing that even in such unfavorable conditions, this guy is still able to remain resilient and continue to resist. He was likely given false information about the target, and while this guy is not considered a weakling, his abilities, while not unique, manifest themselves in high endurance. The hero quickly reacted to blows and easily adapted, and if the mercenary does not reveal all his abilities now, he is unlikely to be able to cope with him. Tansong originally wanted to finish everything quickly and efficiently, but it seems that he will have to use all his strength. From above, all this was closely watched by He Pin, who stood with binoculars and rejoiced that his man was winning the battle. Deciding to demonstrate his best blow, the man rushed towards the wall and pushed off from it, rising several meters up. This fighter was spinning in the air, like the hero of some superhero movie, and it was false to believe that a person was capable of such a thing. The hero found himself completely in the attack zone, and even if he decided to dodge, it would be difficult for him to do so. He would have to dissipate the force of his leg. To do this, he had to use the spiritual energy in both hands and respond with a punch at the same time. The blow left a noticeable pain, but even with this powerful blow, the mercenary retreated, yielding to its power. Hipong was amazed that Chun was able to deflect his signature blow. The man remembers the previous day when, before his visit to Ipin, a man known as Big Brother appeared to him. The man in the suit was silent, trying to get everything done quickly, and the young gentleman wanted Tang Jiang to disappear for a good price. Big Brother agreed to take on the case, but Hipeng also wanted the man in the suit to eliminate Chun as well. He had enough money. The mercenary did not want to kill the guy, and the man was surprised, and he was ready to pay any amount. Big Brother asks you not to bother with stupid questions, and in their group, it would seem, there should have been a killer who could cope with this task. After the conversation, the man in the suit leaves, and Hipeng orders his assistant to call Tan Song to his office. After defeating the Iron Wolf, the hero became famous in military circles, and the man recognized him, and nevertheless, he did not want to take on this work. But the young master reminded him that if it weren't for his father, Tan Song would still be digging in the beds on his mountains, so he should carry out this order. Hipin doesn't even hesitate to threaten the man's elderly father, warning about the possible consequences if something happens to him. Moreover, the mercenary can count on a generous reward for his work, a fee that he could receive right now. In such a situation, a man has no choice, and although the young master was kind to him, his father remains more important. The mentor allowed him to leave a small village in the mountains and move to the city, and if it weren't for him, Hipeng would not have agreed to hire him. The gentleman himself is nothing special. His main strength is inherited from his father. Tansong decides to take on the task to earn money and return to his home village. A man strives to help his father live out the rest of his days. He has lived in a foreign city for too long. That is why Chin Su must die, only so the mercenary can fulfill his mission and find the meaning of life again. Tansong attacks again. His master is waiting for his student. He just needs to complete the job. The hero is not going to lose by blocking the enemy's next blow, and the guy believes that he can win. The nurse contacted Xinyu, asking whether her boss had arrived at the scene in time, since Chan urgently needed help. At the moment, the hero was completely depressed and could only defend himself, and a little more, and the battle could have ended for him. Hearing this, the girl smiled, because her student was still standing, which meant that he had every chance of winning. The nurse was surprised by Shun Yu's confidence. How could she be so convinced of this guy? But the mentor well understood the enormous potential of her student. Chon had just started learning his technique, but as a sparring partner, he had mastered the defensive technique perfectly. Thanks to this, he masterfully used his new skills in parrying, and if he can maintain such a stance, he will never lose. At a certain point, Tansong was tired due to the many attacks, but his target was still standing, even with his arms damaged. The mercenary realizes that if he continues to attack at this pace, his strength will only be enough for a few attacks. Therefore, he needs to complete the battle as quickly as possible, and to do this, he is going to perform his signature trick for the second time. At this moment, the hero is addressed by his inner voice, which tells him that if Chun wants to win, he needs to take advantage of this moment. After a few seconds, the guy's hands seem to move on their own. An instinctive feeling pushed him to jump high. The counterattack turned out to be excellent, and with one precise blow, he knocked his opponent to the ground. Chun didn't even fully understand how he managed to perform the technique so successfully, and Tansong was convinced that such a guy had the mastery of the 12 paths. The man decided that this guy was probably secretly training in secret martial arts and should be thoroughly tested. The guy's inner voice spoke again, telling the owner that his opponent had lost control due to rage. Right now was the perfect moment for another counterattack, and Chun wondered why he could suddenly use such techniques, but there was no time to think about it now. The rivals continued their fight. Their strengths were now approximately equal, and even their movements became similar. However, after a few seconds, the guy was able to strike, which Tan Song did not have time to parry, and the mercenary flew several meters away. Ultimately, the hero managed to win this fight, although the danger was very great, and if he had hesitated for a moment, he could have died. Chin approached the attacker and asked who sent him, but Tan Song had no intention of betraying his customer, and at that moment the guy's inner voice said that he needed to be killed. However, the hero did not want to commit murder at all, and if he kills him, he will face serious problems, perhaps even end up in prison. The voice claimed that this could be justified as self-defense, but the guy was not going to take the risk. Killing a person was too dangerous. Therefore, the guy left the mercenary and invited him to stop this business, and in his inner voice he asked what the hero was going to do if the attack were repeated. In case of a second attack, Shinyu will come to the rescue, and the hero has already turned on his all-seeing eye and now will not be left alone in such situations. After this, Pin came to the scene of the fight, dissatisfied with the terrible work of his man, and he wondered why he hired him in the first place. But what does this rich man even understand about martial arts? And this guy improved his skills tenfold in 2 weeks, and he was not a weak opponent at all. The man was lucky to be alive at all, and such learning abilities were unique, and Chan could even be called a genius. Shinyu also arrived in time. She, of course, believed in her student, but she was still surprised that he managed to defeat such a strong opponent. The girl noticed that the mercenary was not alone, and he sees these people for the first time and decides to find out who they are and why they ordered the guy. Suddenly, Shinyu felt a great danger, and some masked man was going to hit her right now. But the girl was not just one of the best fighters in the organization, and she managed to react in time and escape. Besides, Shinyu had no intention of just letting the attacker go, and she immediately attempted a counterattack. However, the masked man turned out to be very capable, and his reaction was not inferior to the girl, and as a result they exchanged blows for some time. Shinyu tried to find out who this person was and why he attacked her, but it seemed the man was not inclined to talk about it. So he simply used a smoke grenade and, when his rival dropped her guard, quickly ran away. It turned out that the masked man was Big Brother, and at the moment, he, Pong and Tansong were in the car, and we were lucky that the man came just in time. Big Brother was clearly unhappy with the situation, and he did not expect that such a powerful organization would not have a normal fighter. The young master notices that although this man is not brilliant, his teacher is Tan Sanhui himself, which already says a lot. After this, Big Brother smiles. He is interested in this information, and right now he is forming a plan. Evening came. Pin was talking on the phone, and the man in the suit had already carried out his plan, and he killed Tansong, trying to reach his mentor. At this time, in the backyard, the hero built a similar training tool, similar to the one his mentor used, and he was eager to expand his abilities as soon as possible. However, the guy seemed to have overdone it a little, and his body couldn't handle such an intense training regime, and it was better for him to rest for a few days. Because if he continues at the same pace, he may not have enough time to recover before the next competition. Suddenly, Chun heard a loud meowing somewhere above, and strange sounds appeared on the roof. It turned out to be Huadian. Apparently, the cat fell off the roof and fell head over heels, ending up on its owner's face. The guy was no less scared than his pet, and how did this even happen? And on another occasion, he notices something strange on the cat's head. It was some kind of yellow hieroglyph, and the hero had no idea what it was and why it appeared on the cat's forehead, but his inner voice suggested that it was a spell. Chan is not yet used to the fact that he has this feeling so often, and besides, now the voice sounded like a real person. The hero really wants to find out where he got this ability, why he appears at random moments. Suddenly a ghost appears in front of the guy, which is his complete copy, and the essence states that it can be called a shadow. In fact, it is the second self of Chen. Although, to be precise, this spirit is a separate personality that once upon a time moved into the hero's body. This happened back when the guy was just a baby and was lying in a box. Suddenly an unusual cloud of energy fell from the sky. It could easily have been lost among the snowflakes, and that ball hit Chon straight. After this, the hero suddenly comes to his senses, seeing all this, like a vision, and now he has more questions. But even his double could not say for sure what he really was, and he only knew that he did not come from this world. The two argued for a long time, but in the end there was no point, because they had one task to prepare for the competition. The guy should not forget that thanks to his double he has the ability to learn, and he was able to find that berry only thanks to him. As it turned out, the hero and his double are inseparable. Their souls are intertwined into one whole, and therefore, if one dies, the second cannot avoid the same fate. Chin found it difficult to accept all this information, and although this voice said logical things, everything sounded very strange. Suddenly Huadian bit the guy's hand, and one can only guess what exactly the cat didn't like this time. At these exclamations Linka appeared, and she was intrigued by what was going on in the backyard, but her brother argued that there was nothing interesting there, and it was better for her to go to bed early. The girl, in essence, did not mind, but he also needed to rest. All this time, Huadian continued to hang on his arm, and why is this kitty so angry, and the guy didn't do anything bad to her? After some time, the animal finally unhooked, and the situation with the cat exhausted the hero more than hours of training. In parting, an inner voice says that it understands Chin's feelings, and he needs to be given time to get used to all this. However, there was one more important circumstance, and this mysterious character on Huadian's head is actually the key to healing his sister. Xinyu thoroughly researched all the archives, but did not find a single clue about the masked man, and it seems that the attackers thought through their plan well. It was strange, and why should anyone attack her student? And after all, this guy didn't even have much money. In terms of fighting style, this individual can confidently be attributed to a different school than Mad Dog and Iron Wolf. Suddenly, the girl's phone receives a message from her assistant, who again sent her a message so early in the morning. However, it turned out that this was indeed critical information, and the photo showed someone killing Tansong, and the news had already spread throughout the area. Xinyu realized that these were no longer games, and if this man was killed, then he belonged to an organization that does not even hesitate to eliminate its own people. She immediately called Chin to her place, and without suspecting anything, he came to the mentor and apologized for the possible inconvenience. He even brought apples as a gift, but the girl was now wearing glasses, which meant that she had the most strict attitude. The hero was immediately confused, and he realized that something was wrong, but could not guess what exactly happened. In contrast, the nurse was quite happy with the fruit, and she went up to the guest and took the basket of apples from him. Her name was Tora, and she was Shan Yu's main assistant and friend, but in fact everyone simply called her Berry or Apple. The girl asked her student if he watched the latest news on his phone today. However, it turned out that you can only make calls from his mobile phone, and the guy was so poor that he still used a push-button telephone. Tora could not help laughing and was surprised. And is it possible that someone still uses such ancient models, and it seemed as if they lived in different worlds? But what happened so important that made Xinyu so insistently recommend that he watch today's news? First, she reminds Chun that his second fight is very close, so he should prepare himself mentally and she will take care of the rest. She also had a gift for her boyfriend, kept in a large black bag. It turned out to be the uniform of their Association of Southern Schools of Fist Martial Arts, and having received these clothes, he officially joined their ranks. The hero was not even sure that he deserved such an honor, but his mentor assured that everything was in order because he was her ward and therefore should have the appropriate social status. At this moment, Chun had a strange feeling, and on the one hand, he was pleased, but on the other, he felt dependent on the other person. Now, if a guy meets another boxer, he can say that he is a member of the Southern Schools Association. But how safe is it? And might there be problems if the hero talks like that, and friend, for some reason, someone doesn't like the members of the Southern Association? Xinyu claims that as long as she is here, her student will not have problems, because her father is a difficult person. Now it's best for Chun to go home and have a good rest, and if something happens, he needs to call Shinyu as soon as possible. In addition, the Torah strongly advised him to update his mobile phone, and after all, you don't want to look like he's from the Stone Age. The guy still decides to visit the company store and buy a new mobile phone, but it turns out that today he has too little money. As Chen reads out the money in his wallet, he is confronted by a tall guy, quite large and strong. Out of surprise, the hero even dropped his wallet and a gift from his mentor, and it looks like he hit a rock. The person who offended him apologized and returned his wallet, and the guy turned out to be a foreigner. In addition, he was interested in martial arts and immediately realized that Chun was from the Southern Schools Association after seeing his clothes. The guy with dreadlocks was happy because he had long wanted to compete with a strong opponent in a fist fight, and his name was Isai. However, everything turned out to be not so simple, and the hero is trying to explain to the foreigner that they have certain rules, and you can't fight with everyone. But Isai does not agree, and an idea was born in his head, and they can become friends, because friends can learn from each other. And measure strength, because it doesn't break the rules. Chen realized that Isai was sincerely passionate about Kung Fu, so he nevertheless agreed to show his new friend a few techniques. Meanwhile, in the office of the director of the Heavenly Warriors, they discussed a plan to eliminate the hero, and the man from the Black Killers will not come. He has already been given another task. Paul got angry about this, and why didn't that man show up? And he doesn't seem to care about the director. Carl agrees with his boss, and the secretary hints that a dog that does not think about its owner is a bad dog. A few days later, the guy and his new friend became very close, and now they train together in his backyard, learning new techniques. Linka and her little friend watched this and were surprised, and in just 3 days their relationship became very close. Isai turned out to be a good person, always kind to others, and he even gave Linky's brother a new phone. The foreigner loved martial arts and was quite good at them, and right now he was fighting against a hero. But Chun was faster, especially in kicking, and for some reason, Isai preferred to fight only with his hands. The guy with dreadlocks admired his new friend's technique, but noticed that in his sport, high kicks are prohibited. The hero told him that this was a blow from a different technique, and it was not forbidden to add something new to fighting styles. Chin asked Isai why he didn't use kicks, and indeed, in some situations they may simply be necessary. It turned out that the foreigner was missing one leg, and in its place he has a metal prosthesis, and the guy did not want to discuss this topic. Linka reminded her brother that they had to go, and they still have a lot to do, and evening on the street is already close. They said goodbye and went their separate ways, but they will definitely meet again later, and we are both interested in fighting each other. After this, the hero went into the hall and met his friend, and it seemed that he had come to find out whether the names of the opponents in the second round had already been posted. Since Chun defeated Iron Wolf, the best in his group, now no one from this category will dare to challenge him. For some reason, there were still no names on the table other than the winner of the first fight. It was strange, and the guy is sure that the training camp to which Iron Wolf and others belong will not leave him alone. There were rumors in the hall that the opponents were still unknown, and the director had prepared one of the Black Killers for the hero. However, people tend to believe that this vaunted killer simply gave up, and that such an organization as the Black Killers was almost unheard of. It turns out that Paul heard their conversation, but did not react particularly strongly, and I simply advised them to shut up, and if they think that everyone has chickened out, let them enter the ring themselves. However, the Black Killers have already prepared for the next round, and an X-person will arrive right on the day of the fight with Chen. The director decides to come up with a story with a shroud of mystery so that no one suspects anything, and he expects to get a good benefit in the long run. A few days later, the crowd again gathers in the huge hall for a spectacular fight between the best fighters in the country. The host announces that the fight scheduled for tonight is about to begin, and in this case, visitors just have to wait a little. Wei had a very bad feeling for some reason, and he advises his friend to abandon today's fight. Still, this story with an unknown enemy is too strange, but the hero has no way back. His comrade continues to insist on his own, and his boxing intuition has never failed him, and right now it tells him that this is a bad idea. But Chun assures that everything will be fine, and he has an excellent teacher, and he knows that if he adapts in time and stays focused, everything will be fine. In real life, there is no way to prepare in advance. You have to improvise. At one point, the presenter announces that a hero is coming on stage, and the crowd bursts into applause, and he is now very popular, and Wei asks him to be as careful as possible. Everyone notices that he is now wearing a Southern School Association uniform, and people support the guy and wish him good luck. After this, the presenter announces the second fighter, and from today it became a man from the same training camp as the Iron Wolf, and his name was Douglas. It was an unknown boxer, but Chen simply could not believe his eyes when he saw his opponent, and what could this mean? It turned out to be his new friend Isai, and he had not one prosthesis, but four, and instead of both arms and both legs he had iron mechanisms. The guy with dreadlocks looked quite cheerful, smiled, greeted his bro, and they saw each other again. Tang Jiang came to this fight. He was interested in seeing the winner of the last battle, and apparently, he knew Isai and was surprised that the guy showed up in such a place. His two girlfriends, Su Ziyi and Fang Xiaowan, also came to see him, and a man with blue hair greeted them, glad to see them. Tang Jiang was surprised how the girls managed to find him, but in fact it was a secret, and you would never have thought that he liked this kind of thing. Everyone has their own hobbies, and it is not necessary to have the same interests as their father, and all people are individual. This time the man with blue hair invited his girlfriends to place a bet on today's match. One of them agreed, but with the condition that if she wins, then he must marry one of them. Tang Jiang decided that although this was a marriage of convenience, he did not mind marrying a woman with the same interests as him. Fang Xiaowan chooses the hero as the contender for victory, and her friend with purple hair chooses another fighter, simply because she does not want to repeat after her. At some point, Su Ziyi turns his attention to Chen, who seems to be interested in something. For some reason, the girl seemed to have seen this man before. He seemed familiar to her. Meanwhile, the opponents had already climbed into the ring and were waiting for the start of the match. It was about to begin. The presenter finally turned to the guys and advised them to beat without regret and not ask for mercy, and now they need to get ready. And soon the referee shouted about the start of the battle. The boxers immediately rushed into battle. The hero showed greater activity compared to his opponent, quickly closing the distance, and they seemed to urgently want to take the initiative. Isai did not expect such speed from his new friend, and although he had trained with him before, this was the first time he had such an impression. However, the foreigner was also an unusual fighter, and easily blocked a blow from the guy with his fist. After that, he asked Chun to cool down, since the blow was too weak, and the problem was that Isai now knew his opponent's techniques. Immediately after parrying the attack, the guy with dreadlocks performed a quick and deft kick, hitting the target directly. The attack reached the hero's face, forcing him to retreat a few steps. Chen now realized that this foreigner's style was definitely not fist fighting, and a couple of days ago he simply lied to him. Isai did not lose his grip and immediately rushed into the next attack, his speed several times higher than when they sparred. Chun with difficulty, but blocked the hook with his opponent's right hand, and now he needed to be as focused as possible. Suddenly the guy with dreadlocks did something incredible, and as soon as his hand was blocked, he jumped several meters into the air. As a result, Isai found himself behind Chen and again powerfully kicked him in the chest area. Now the hero found himself in an awkward position because his opponent knew many of his techniques, while he himself had no idea what to expect from this foreigner. However, standing still was not an option, so Chen decides to at least take some action by throwing a kick. The guy with dreadlocks doesn't have time to react to this blow, and, frankly, it turns out to be stronger than the previous one. Spectators watch what is happening with interest, and despite this foreigner's strange fighting style, he seems to be a serious opponent. Wei asks Shinyu what kind of strange technique the guy with prosthetics has, and oh, I've never seen anything like this before. This fighting style is probably completely wild. Legs and arms work simultaneously, as if it were a war dance. However, there is little information about this, and now the guy will have to get out and improvise. Chin asks Isai who he really is, and he replies that he has already heard everything from the referee, and his name is Douglas, and he is from a group of black killers. But why did he need to interfere with the hero's trust? And the answer turns out to be obvious, and of course, to explore all his skills. How else could he have learned about the ability to master his feat and his amazing ability to learn, if not on the battlefield? Now the guy had a huge advantage, because his opponent had not yet gotten used to his fighting style. The hero was deeply upset, and he considered the guy with the prosthetics a real friend, and maybe it was all just acting. Isai found it funny to listen to this, and how can you become real friends in 3 days? And that guy was too naive. Convinced that this is all a lie, Chin decides to use his new technique and uses his special style. As a result, the guy moved so fast that his opponent could not follow his movements, and the hero seemed to be in several places at the same time. Suddenly, he appears right in front of Isai, and now the guy wants to realize his life credo, and whoever gives him a drop of water, he will return the whole ocean. Despite the fact that they had known each other for only 3 days, they were connected only by little things. The hero considered this man his friend. That is why he cannot allow anyone to violate his life principles, and the foreigner will pay for it. The crowd was delighted, and at this moment, the winner of the previous fight again demonstrated his signature move. Isai, just like the Iron Wolf in the previous fight, fell into the ring from a great height, and the guy hit his whole body, but this time something was different. Chun had a strange sensation in his hands, and his opponent noticed with a grin on his face that he seemed to be punching too hard. The guy with dreadlocks turned out to be stronger than the Iron Wolf, and after a few seconds, he managed to get to his feet, and he highly appreciated the hero's techniques. But Chun did not want to listen to the traitor, and he wanted to end him as quickly as possible. Indeed, it turned out to be difficult, and the foreigner seemed to have an endless supply of stamina, and after such a fall he moved the same way as before. In addition, his fighting style remained wild and unexplored, as at the beginning of the battle, and this time he grabbed the ropes and stood on them with his feet. Isai was going to do something unique, and the guy believed that talking about honor and principles was meaningless in the ring. A second later, he jumped straight at the hero and hit him in the face with his knee, and at the last moment, Chun managed to cover himself with his hands. This blow was incredibly powerful, and the guy slid several meters back across the ring. The foreigner made it clear that he did not enter the ring to talk, but to fight to the death. After all, on the battlefield nothing matters except victory. Chin agrees with his opponent, but even in the ring it is important to remain human. Therefore, he wants to punish the liar in front of him while maintaining his moral standards. The fighters realized that they had lost a lot of strength, and they needed to come up with a plan. Both boxers decide to fight at full strength, let the stronger one win. Suddenly, the hero has a strange feeling. He realizes 2 weak points in his opponent. This was suggested to him by his double, but the foreigner's body had undergone modifications. There is little time to think, and Isai rushes to attack. The guy with dreadlocks throws a kick, but Chun fights him off with a technique, sensing danger from above. The foreigner uses his fighting style a second time. The first blow is only a distraction, and the second is full of power. The hero dodged and launched a counterattack, but the opponent also managed to dodge. Isai jumped to the other end of the ring, thinking he was safe there. But Chun made every effort to get closer and hit the weak spot. Instead of a successful attack, the hero felt a strange sensation, and his double noticed it. The foreigner, instead of suffering from pain, took a stance, making strange sounds like clicks. At the last moment, Isai thrust his chest forward and threw Chun away. The guy flew far and could barely stand on his feet. Things were bad. The hero had used up a lot of spiritual energy, and his strength was running out. But from the outside, everything looked impressive, and perhaps he would be able to win. Shin Yu understood that the disciple was making amazing progress, but he had already used up his hidden powers, while the enemy was just beginning to use them. It is especially important to take into account physical inequality, and the hero is significantly inferior to his opponent. Wei was disappointed to learn this information, but there was no point in denying it, and the Orphan turned out to be incredibly powerful. If the enemy continues at the same pace, Chun will soon run out of energy. Despite his excellent kung fu, he will lose. At some point, an inner voice tells the guy that Isai's secret is yoga, which allows him to protect his vulnerabilities. The hero thought that he just hit poorly, but everything turned out to be more complicated, and the warrior tells him that if he had hit a little weaker, Chun could be dead now. The fight continued. The advantage was on the foreigner's side, and Chun had to simply keep his distance. The dreadlocked guy realized that his opponent seemed to have learned his weaknesses, and it was time to end the fight. After one of the blows, the hero's right hand broke. The situation became worse every minute. The voice insists that now is not the time to hesitate. He needs to make an important decision right now. Suddenly, Chun notices an opportunity to hit his opponent's weak spot and instantly points his palm there. It turned out to be incredibly difficult to strike at this vulnerable spot, and even with a lot of effort, Chun could not achieve success. Isai seeks to break his opponent's arm in several places, and thanks to mechanical prostheses, he can do this easily. The hero manages to react, and jumping upward, he uses his legs to spread the alien's arms to the sides. He then hits the guys hard in the head, narrowly avoiding a stalemate. Chin realizes that his opponent has spent a lot of effort, and perhaps he still has a chance to win. But they remain scanty. An inner voice warns that in this state he will not be able to break through Isai's defense. Therefore, the guy must make an important decision, otherwise he may die. In the end, the hero makes up his mind and puts his body under the complete control of his second self, and the warrior promises to win this battle at any cost. Once again, the boxers fight in a fist fight, and Chen follows the advice of his inner voice, blocking the blow with his right hand. He then uses his adrenaline from the pain to increase the strength of his left arm. This turns out to be effective, and now you need to throw your opponent off balance, and to do this, Chen hits his knees with full force. The foreigner senses danger and decides to slow down and widen the distance. Isai then rushes forward, trying to hit the hero with his leg, but in vain. The foreigner continues his series of attacks, skillfully combining yoga and his style. Even when he opens up for an attack, Chun cannot hit him, and he has exceptional strength and incredible speed. The hero understands that if it weren't for his unique ability, he would have lost this battle long ago. The dreadlocked guy notices that his opponent remembers all of his moves, and he can't continue using unique attacks. He has many techniques in his arsenal, but almost all of them have already been used. The first round is coming to an end, and if one of them wants to quickly end the battle, he should hurry. The foreigner decides to use one of his powerful blows, and Chin's inner voice warns that if he misses this blow, he will die. The hero, not having time to dodge, directed all his remaining strength into his right leg to parry the attack. He managed to repel the attack, but now, in addition to his arm, one of his legs was severely damaged. Isai still reached it by being in an advantageous position and using both his arms and legs. After dodging, Chun flies several meters away and collides with the corner of the arena. Fans can't believe their eyes when they see the smoke after these hits. Wei and Shin Yu are worried about their comrade, urging him to raise the white flag. Suddenly, the girl's assistant calls and says that she found a lot of information about a guy with dreadlocks. Shin Yu believes that it is too late, since the data was needed before the start of the battle. Tora insists that there is a lot of interesting information in this information, and it is needed for detailed study after the battle. Isai tells his opponent that he has no right to lose because of one reason. If the hero wanted to defeat the foreigner, then he should have done it earlier, but now it is too late. Chun loses strength, his eyes float, and he loses consciousness. An inner voice tells him to come to his senses, raising doubts about his motivation. Isai uses one last unique move to finish the fight. The hero grabs the rope, and everyone thinks he is going to give up. The foreigner stops, realizing that victory has already been achieved. Paul rejoices, believing that the hero made the right choice to save his life. However, Qian is not going to run away from the ring, surprising his enemies with a new technique. The guy pushes off the ropes, reminiscent of the technique Tan Song used against him. At this moment, the hero senses a new source of strength, focusing on the next step. He mastered the unique technique of one of his opponents after just one fight, and his ability to learn was amazing. Isai was forced to go with the flow, his strength exhausted, unable to retreat. Even without having time to defend himself with his mechanical prostheses, Isai was unable to react to the attack, and the hero's blow hit him in the back of the head. This attack was so strong that it knocked the foreigner to the floor of the ring, and he barely managed to get to his feet. The foreigner's face shows pain, but he refuses to give up. He has the last reserve of strength left in him. The guy felt that his leg was broken in several places, and it would seem that this should have been enough. Those around him were shocked. It seemed that this guy was made of pure steel to withstand such a powerful blow. Isai prepares for the final blow, lowering his hands to the floor and squeezing them with all his might. The hero's inner voice tells him that after this technique the opponent will have no strength left. The foreigner, adopting a posture to accelerate, rushes towards Qian with incredible speed, sending his fists towards him. Wei believed that she needed to stay put, despite the possibility of dodging, and D for girls. It is important that a guy with dreadlocks does not get an extra chance. At this moment, her student must make the best shot of his life, and if he does not take advantage of this moment, he risks losing. The hero is exhausted, but he managed to master a unique blow during the battle, which required a huge expenditure of energy. Qin realizes that this moment will be decisive, and his inner voice tells him that he needs to act. First, you need to block the enemy's attack, as a result of which the hero's right arm bones are broken in several places. Now you need to put all your remaining strength into a single blow to become a winner. The hero is completely concentrated, directing all energy into his left fist. The blow hits the target, breaking the foreigner's ribs, revealing his weak point. Now the foreigner is unable to continue the fight, and the damage is too enormous, and his internal organs are seriously damaged. Qin drains so much energy from his attack that hot steam floats around him afterward. Isai could not believe his eyes. No one had managed to reflect this technique before. The guy with dreadlocks was not upset. On the contrary, he felt a moment of true friendship. The foreigner announced his desire to surrender. Their confrontation ended. The presenter could only climb into the ring and announce the winner. The evening ended with the hero's triumph. The spectators were unhappy with the fight. They liked it, but the ending seemed boring, and why did Isai give up? Many thought that the fight was according to the script, but that didn't really matter. Fan Xiaowan was happy today. She guessed the winner, and she was entitled to a reward. Su Zi doesn't mind. This dispute can finally resolve their family's fight about marrying Tang Jiang. The man with long hair looked calm. Apparently, he would have to marry this girl. The outcome of the fight is interesting, luck, or a brilliant plan, and as a beginner, Chun could not use such techniques. After the fight, Isai escorted the hero to the locker room, where Chen expressed concern about possible retaliation from a foreigner, and however, the guy with the dreadlocks assured him that it would be an insult to his honor. At this point, the hero realized that his opponent was probably not so bad, and perhaps circumstances forced him to do so, and after that he lost consciousness. Xin Yu urgently called the doctors, demanding that her disciple be placed in the medical room and anesthesia administered immediately. The girl admired her student, emphasizing that today he exceeded all her expectations. After some time, the medical ward began to discuss the possibility that Chun, if he continued in the same spirit, would become one of the chosen ones. It turned out that these were the words of Isai, and it was a little strange that he was here, but the guy with dreadlocks just wanted to treat his friend to food. Shin Yu was apparently unhappy with this, and she was angry at the man for beating the hero, emphasizing that he should immediately return to his camp. Wei was very worried about his comrade, who remained unconscious, and however, there was no longer any danger to his life, and after a month of bed rest he was expected to recover. However, exactly a month later he was due to fight in the third round, and the question remained whether he would have time to recover by this point, or would have to miss the fight. The girl with glasses emphasized with her stern look that this fight is not so important, and it wouldn't be so bad if the guy let him through. After this, the doctor ordered everyone present to leave the room, and the patient now needs proper rest. A few hours later evening came. The foreigner was sitting on the windowsill, peering at the stars, and at that moment the director of the organization approached him. The next morning the hero woke up, looking rather tired, but overall feeling good. His friends were always there, and were very happy to see him open his eyes. Chun asked his friend what happened to him, and because he doesn't remember anything after the last blow, and as it turned out, there was bad news for him. Firstly, his little sister found out about his injuries, and the girl flew into a rage, and it was scary to even think about it. But in fact it wasn't the worst thing, and at that moment, the guys were quarreling about whether to tell the guy the whole truth. In the end, Tora asked the patient one last time if he was sure he wanted to hear this information, and Chen replied that he was ready for anything. Now that she could not be sued, the nurse could show all the information she could find. All this data related to his opponent in the last match, and there was complete information about Isai. It turned out that the guy was born into a poor African family, and his real name was unknown, since Isai was only a pseudonym. He grew up in conditions of terrible poverty, where people started massive fights for a piece of food. Isai stood out among all the children in the village for his strength and talent, which allowed him to provide himself with a little food. One day, his potential was accidentally discovered by representatives of the camp to which Iron Wolf and Mad Dog belonged. The leaders of the organization invited him to join them, promising to save his family and even the entire village. The guy agreed without hesitation, because such an opportunity comes once in a lifetime, and he did not know what would happen if he refused. At combat school he ended up in a tough unit Shadow Assassins, and Isai went through hell training with them, but continued to fight for the sake of his family. Chun was shocked by this information, and only now he found out that this man was sent to him by someone specially. In addition, the organization to which the foreigner belonged was one of the most mysterious and powerful in the world. The secret hand of the death camp specialized in organizing difficult fights and always strived for victory at any cost. Rumors were circulating that the members of the secret hand of the death camp had special body modifiers, which were various enhancements. Now the guys could be convinced of the veracity of this information, and the guy with dreadlocks had mechanical prosthetics instead of arms and legs, and they even said that these prostheses draw power from another world. But, probably, these were just inventions, and Nurse seemed to need to stop watching too many movies. In contrast, the hero was not so categorical, and he knew that the other world existed, and perhaps it was connected with his sister. Events take us back several years, when Isai received terrible injuries while performing one of the tasks. His body had deep cuts and some limbs were missing, but he still smiled, and after all, he successfully completed the mission. The boss praised him and promised to send even more money to his family, and that was enough for me. One of the doctors asked the boss if Isai could continue to perform tasks, but the man in the suit was surprised by such a question, and of course he can. Right at this time, several workers brought a fresh batch of some unusual substance. It was some kind of liquid, reminiscent of mercury, and it was probably used in the creation of special modules for body modification. A few days later, Isaiah was visited by a man in the hospital, and the man looked exhausted. His only desire was to see his family. However, unfortunately, completing the mission cost him both his arms and one leg, and in this state, meeting with the family seemed impossible. That is why Isai decides to resort to radical changes and agrees to modify his body. He was warned that there was still time to change his mind, but Isai made the final decision. The procedures were extremely painful, but Isai was determined to see his family at least one more time. The operation was successful, and soon the guy trained to master his new body, making his blows even more powerful. He quickly mastered his new prosthetics, even learned to box. In the suit, the man asked how he felt in this state, and Isai replied that he liked his new body much better. He could control the force of his blows and regulate the flow of his breath, which allowed him to better concentrate in battle. But such changes had their drawbacks, and Isai was well aware that because of them he had very little time left. After the operation, Isai immediately felt that something was wrong with his heart, and but it is not designed for such loads, and its life seems to be short. The boss apologized to the guy, blaming himself for unforeseen circumstances, and after all, it was an experimental option. Now, despite being able to walk again, Isai has little time left due to the deadly side effects of prosthetics. According to doctors, he has approximately 5 years left, and after this, his body will cease to function normally. The guy was shocked, but did not lose heart, and after all, he was a killer, and his life was always on the line, and so he accepts another task. One of the workers wonders if they need to keep such a guy around. The boss demonstrates that even if it is a failed product, it should be used while it is possible. The man also orders the engineers to look for other options for extraterrestrial material for modifications. Over the following years, Isai took on one mission after another, and although no one knows exactly how much he earned, he kept little for himself. After all, he had a dream, and to realize it he had to dip his hands in blood up to his elbows. Isai's biggest dream was to see his family happy. After a successful mission, he was happy, because this time he earned a little more money, but all his thoughts were about home. Isai immediately called his boss and asked for the next task, and this time he needed to deal with Chan-Su. He agreed, but warned his boss that after this mission he wanted to complete his activities and return home, because he had very little time left. Therefore, his only desire was to spend the remaining time with his family. The boss agreed, but to do this he needed to successfully complete the task and win the boxing match. It turned out that no matter how the fight ended, Isai would still die, and this fact upset the hero a little. The foreigner left a letter for Chun, which they found on his desk in the morning, and to be honest, his handwriting was terrible. The friends decided to leave the guy alone, so Shunyu had to pull his assistant out by the ears, because the girl was too curious. Chun was very upset after hearing this, and Isai's fate seemed incredibly sad to him, and did he really deserve such a fate? The hero carefully opened the letter, and the first lines are already a harbinger of nothing ordinary, and Isai apologizes for his handwriting, hinting that the content of the letter is important, and asks not to attach importance to its imperfect style, and deep down he is eager to share many exciting experiences. The mysterious foreigner foretells that by the time Chun reads these lines, he may no longer be alive, and the hero is advised to become even stronger, since sinister forces are already on the way, ready to destroy him. An important point is the discovery that the connection between the hero and Isai was not friendly, and the guy only approached the other in order to obtain information that he could use to his advantage. Fate has its own plans, and therefore they will never cross their paths again. The hero's inner voice suggests that the author of the letter is trying to mislead him, and this is an attempt to lower our guard in order to end it once and for all. Despite his doubts, the guy is sure that Isai was looking for a way to protect him, warning him of an impending threat. All this drama becomes insignificant in light of the fact that new challenges await them, and in this place they will have to become stronger, since they have many unsolved tasks before them. At the time of the arrest of the guy with dreadlocks, he was subjected to severe beatings in an attempt to reveal the reasons for the failure of the task and the failure to achieve the set goal. The reason for the failure is that Chun continued to consider Isai his friend, and even in the last minutes he tried to spare him, demonstrating his naivety and kindness. The foreigner who sent the letter expresses respect for Chun as a true fighter, and however, the director reminds that in the eyes of the organization he is just an assassin who has nothing to do with martial arts. Isai, realizing that today could be the last day of his life, decides not to waste it on meaningless conversations, and instead, he plunges into his memories of his home, looking for solace in the past. Paul, with an expression of incredible anger, insists on talking, trying to find out why Isai gave up the last chance to see his family for the sake of the current situation, and the look is full of anger and misunderstanding. However, Isai himself doubts whether he will have enough time to return home, and perhaps there is no point in this, and he realizes the futility of his current situation. The director and his secretary decide to let the foreigner live, implementing Plan B. The plan is scheduled to be carried out this evening, but they understand that they should not overdo it in order to maintain at least some kind of relationship with the Southern Association. The men are discussing a special product that should arrive in no later than 3 months. The focus now turns to finishing the Isai case, and plans for regular games with a guy are already ripe. The foreigner is tired of hanging on chains, and he is trying to get out, and however, all his attempts are in vain. The guards advise him not to waste his time, and the chains were specially designed to hold him, and he should simply accept the fact that here, in this place, he would spend the rest of his days. The organization, feeling that he is no longer useful, decides to get rid of him, and the fate of the real killer becomes inevitable. Despite the dark prospects, something deep in Isai's soul continued to resist, and he didn't want to die here, and having approached the guards, he asked how realistic it was for him to get out of here. One of the men with a grin on his face confirmed that this was almost impossible, and he is even willing to bet money on it. Suddenly the guy grabbed the chain links and squeezed them with great force, and under pressure the metal cracked into pieces, and Isai was free, and now the guard will have to give his money. However, the man, instead of admitting defeat, pointed his gun at Isai. Ordinary people could not compare with Isai, and he easily neutralized the guard. The second guard, frightened, decided that the main thing in this situation was to survive, and he fired a whole clip towards Isai. However, his bullets bounced off his metal prosthetics, rendering the weapon useless. The guy with the dreadlocks laughed, reminding them that conventional weapons were useless against him, and his boss should have warned them about this. Thus, the second guard was also neutralized, and Isai had hope of doing something last. In addition, he found a special key that will help him get out of the cell, and now he has a chance to escape from this trap. The moment he crossed the threshold, Isai was suddenly surrounded by a crowd of armed men ready to attack. This event caused deep surprise in Isai, and perhaps these people have no other occupation than hunting for a former mercenary. But in his confidence that he cannot be caught, Isai takes into account their complete misunderstanding of his unique abilities. In the blink of an eye, Isai deftly uses one of his outstanding techniques, causing the air around him to heat up intensely. As a result, those around them feel enormous warmth, but are unable to determine the source of this energy. One of the pursuers realizes that this incredible heat is caused by friction between Isai's punches and the air. Thus, Isai easily neutralizes the entire crowd with just one of his skills, and now no one stands in his way. Soon after this, he is released and appears on the surface, and the night turns out to be deep, and a beautiful moon flickers in the sky. Suddenly, Isai pays attention to an unusual girl, and from her glance it becomes obvious that she is also a killer. Isai instantly realizes that she is heading towards Chun for the purpose of murder, and he needs to save his friend from this threat. At this time, our hero treated his companion in a cozy cafe, trying to restore his exhausted bones with the help of delicious dishes. Having shown interest in the well-being of Wei's little sister, the hero learned that she prefers to keep her distance due to resentment for some reason. In a conversation with Chin, the second personality, our hero learned that Link is not his mother or wife, but his sister. With gratitude, the hero expressed his gratitude to his comrade for taking care of the girl, realizing that he already had enough worries of his own, and Wei reacted positively, proud of the opportunity to help. My attention was drawn to a mysterious girl preparing for battle and looking at her watch, and Isai disrupted her plans by preventing her attack. The stranger remained indifferent, while the killer was going to use the dagger to quickly end the whole matter. The foreigner was completely unprepared for such a turn of events, and he had to quickly develop a rescue plan for the hero. Isai, in order to repel the throwing weapon, was forced to take a risk and jump forward, challenging the abyss, which became his only salvation. Miraculously, the guy managed to cling to the edge of a multi-story building at the last moment, avoiding a dangerous fall and a potential tragic end. After this, the foreigner, having overcome his fear, quickly regained his resolve and went upstairs, realizing that he himself was on the verge of fear. Under normal circumstances, people usually start by asking why you are here, but this mysterious girl chose silence. Her words were brief, and not everyone here is a killer, and her mission was to eliminate the target, and so why did the guy get in her way? Isai's acquaintance accused him of betrayal, asking why he decided to jeopardize everything that the organization provided for him and his family. The foreigner denied these accusations, claiming that he did not betray anyone, and he simply cares about his life more than others and wants to protect those he cares about before death comes. The hero's friend adheres to principles, while his boss is just a money-hungry man who thinks only of his own benefit. Realizing that a collision is inevitable, the girl decides to attack first, instantly taking a step forward with incredible speed. At the last moment, Isai blocks her blow with his hand, preparing for the last battle of his life. The stranger tries to hit him in the leg, but the guy again successfully parries her attack. Not only that, but he manages to grab the girl's leg and forcefully slams her into the concrete floor. Under the influence of this blow, the opponent loses her balance, requiring time to recover, but Isai, it seems, is not going to give her this opportunity. The desire to finish the fight as quickly as possible smoldered inside him, and he attempted to finish off his opponent with a powerful kick. However, at some point the mysterious girl seemed to disappear in the very place where she had just been, and the man threw a blow into the void. A few seconds later, the mysterious stranger suddenly returned, swinging her legs and grabbing the guy by the neck, and he found himself in her grasp. The foreigner tried with all his might to resist, and his physical strength was his main advantage, but not everything is so simple. The girl showed true professionalism, using her dexterity to put her opponent in a hopeless position. Isai realized that it would not be possible to hold out for long in such a fight, and he urgently needed to come up with some way out. In order to escape from a difficult situation, the guy began to heat his body to maximum temperature, trying to free himself. The opponent had to loosen her grip, and Isai immediately took advantage of the moment, accelerating with his fist in her face. She was surprised at his persistence in trying to survive, while the guy believed that saving his life was an indisputable right that was worth protecting by any means. At this moment, the girl had to use her main weapon, for which she needed to remove the gloves from her hands. It is always useful to know a variety of methods to neutralize an enemy, especially if he has poisonous skin, and a variety of tactics can be a decisive factor. Having assessed the situation in detail, the guy realizes that his current state is not conducive to victory, and it is important to take into account your weaknesses and strive to overcome them. Despite the difficult situation, the guy has to fight to the limit of his strength, and then sometimes victory becomes a question even in the face of impossible conditions. With tenacity and determination, Isai decides to attack his opponent with his fist, but she avoids the blow with ease, showing off her agility. The poison girl has a unique advantage. Cut your opponent's skin once and her poison begins to take effect, and this creates additional difficulties for Isai. In addition to poison, the stranger has amazing physical strength, and with a slight movement, she breaks the guy's wrist and again catches him in the grip. The mercenary seeks to deliver a crushing blow, aiming for Isai's eye, and this moment can become decisive in the fight, and its goal is to ruthlessly eliminate the enemy. With his last strength, the guy dodges, falling to the ground in an attempt to free himself from the grip, and in the survival instinct is important in such moments. But even after being freed, Isai realizes that the fight is far from over, and the stranger is not going to give up, and every action has its consequences. During the struggle, the girl manages to leave a scratch on Isai's face, emphasizing the cruelty and unpredictability of this confrontation. Unexpectedly, she got rid of her shoes and, using her bare legs, was able to graze her opponent. The guy admires the skill of his rival, and if it weren't for her poisonous body, he would have happily spent the whole day fighting with her. The rival notices that a beautiful flower always has thorns, and she does not want to waste time discussing this fact. In an attempt to finally defeat the enemy, she rushes forward, but Isai spends his last strength just to delay time. An aggravating fact is that the mercenary has already figured out his weak points, which had not healed after the previous fight. This allows the stranger to maintain dominance throughout the fight. The foreigner can only continue to resist. At some point, Isai notices that his vision has deteriorated sharply. Everything before his eyes begins to swim. The situation becomes extremely difficult. Isai dreams of blocking the poison with the help of his mechanical prosthetics, but this turns out to be impossible. The guy realizes that he is well aware of this impossibility, but the situation forces him to resort to desperate measures, and sometimes you have to take risks. Concentrating all his energy, Isai prepares for the final blow using his special technique, and at this moment he feels that every moment can become decisive in this mortal battle. There was so much energy that even the clothes on his hands flew to shreds, and perhaps the mercenary was in significant danger. The guy directed all his strength to his hands, accumulating energy throughout the fight for this moment. The girl, however, was not going to just stand still, and she is sure that nothing will work against her. The mercenary goes around her opponent from the side, using the scorpion sting technique, and the fight should end. Unfortunately, Isai did not have time to follow the movements of his rival, and his chest was pierced right to the heart. It looks like he lost this fight, and did you really not manage to fulfill any of your dying wishes? When the girl was about to leave, suddenly a voice was heard behind her, and the man, somehow, was still able to move. His body stood on its feet only thanks to enormous willpower, and a huge amount of poison affected him. Isai decides to continue the fight, and he has nothing left to lose, and this is his last test in this world. Rushing forward, he kicks the mercenary, and he can't understand why this man doesn't just turn away from his stupid desires and die. The guy just wanted to preserve his humanity and thank Chen for his respect and friendship, and even though he was naive, like a child. However, he had almost no strength left, and the mercenary knocks him down with a move and sits on top, casting doubt on his wonderful appearance. If this is true, then, in her opinion, Isai deserves a peaceful death, and the girl asks permission to send him to the next world without suffering. She kisses him on the lips and releases a huge amount of a powerful toxin into his body so that he does not feel pain. At this time, Chan and his comrade, who had already called the police, come running to the roof of the building. Wei didn't quite understand how the hero realized that something was wrong here, but the guy explained it with his simple intuition. In fact, he was guided by an inner voice. Although weakened by the previous battle, the energy emanating from the fight was very strong. Suddenly Chen sees his comrade lying on the ground, motionless and with his eyes closed, and it is not clear whether he is alive. Fortunately, he was still conscious, and it seemed to him that the hero had come to finish him off, explaining his condition by a showdown within the organization. But the guy already understood everything, and Isai, obviously, wanted to protect him from the killer and shorten his last hours of life even more. The foreigner decided not to resort to lies and advised the guy to behave the way he wanted, and his only last wish was to give one gift. The keycard provided turned out to be access to their organization's secret laboratory, and the hero won it in a private dispute today and can now use it at his discretion. Having said goodbye to his only friend, Isai, unfortunately, lost the ability to speak, and with his eyes calmly closed, he left this world. The next day, A mercenary named BG was present in the director's office, drinking juice and listening to the man argue with his superiors. Paul could not understand why the organization of black assassins was unable to send a normal person capable of carrying out his task. Right during a telephone conversation with the director, one of the employees came into the office and reported that Douglas's body had been discovered without unnecessary noise. But Paul unlocked the man, showing no interest in what had happened, and the man seemed to be extremely angry. The man in the suit was called Mori, and he was in the dark about Isai's fate, and the girl could do as she pleased, depending on her mood. Something must have upset BG, and therefore she no longer wanted to continue with her mission, and I had to come to terms with this. The boss got tired of arguing with the director, because, despite the age differences, he and the girl had the same position in the organization. Therefore, Paul has no right to shout into the older man on the phone, and the man was extremely annoyed by this behavior and simply put down the phone. As a result, the director was literally on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and BG asked for help in preparing the room, since she would be staying here for some time. After leaving the room, she left the man alone with his thoughts, and Paul still could not calm down. He was overcome by the desire to take out his anger on something. A series of failures seriously damaged the reputation of his school, and he was powerless to change the situation, and moreover, the management behaved arrogantly. If he were not in this position, he would gladly solve the problem with the hero himself, and sooner or later the time will come, and he will definitely do it. After these events, we moved to a private island where the Su family estate is located, and a girl pulled up right next to her in a luxury car. It was Suzy, and the first person to meet her was grandfather, and he asked his granddaughter if the school holidays had already arrived. The girl asked the old man how he was feeling, whether the condition of his legs had improved, but unfortunately, due to his age, much could no longer be changed. Suzy did not agree with this, arguing that medical technology is now very advanced, and there will definitely be a way to cure her grandfather's legs. At some point, the old man got tired of talking about his poor health. He was more interested in how many problems his granddaughter was causing her father. Suzy was telling her grandfather about an exciting fight that she recently attended in the company of her classmate, and however, the elderly man could not understand what could be so fascinating about watching a fight. The girl asked not to take it too seriously, arguing that such competitions are just entertainment for spectators and mainly serve as a source of income for the organizers. All this, in her opinion, seemed too boring, since a truly exciting fight can only be offered by a fighter with outstanding skills and a unique style. The granddaughter claimed that she saw such a fighter that evening because he was able to master a completely new technique right during the fight. This man's name was Chen Su, and the elderly man was at a loss, and have the rules of the combat organization changed, and oh, this doesn't usually happen. Moreover, grandfather had never heard of Chung Su, so he did not take Suzy's words seriously, and perhaps it was just her imagination. The girl was not going to argue with the old man and only advised him to personally attend such an event if he was so skeptical. The hero continued to recover in the hospital at this time, and suddenly he sneezed, and it occurred to him whether someone was remembering him now. Shinyu learned from a telephone conversation that the organization had discovered Isai's body, and after all, in this situation it is better for all of them not to interfere. The guy was still tormenting himself because his friend sacrificed his life to save him, and he was so eager to see his family. At this moment, the hero's inner voice carefully suggested deduction, and whether, in fact, Chen Su wanted to take the opportunity to avenge his fallen comrade, and in this case, the hero was ready to help in this difficult matter. But sometimes all these thoughts sounded so absurd, and after all, Isai had made attempts to take the hero's life. So why did the hero now feel such deep sadness at his loss? The reason turned out to be more complex than it might seem, and after all, a living person died, and it was through the hero, and therefore, Chun could not simply peacefully experience the events, pretending that nothing special had happened. A voice in his head hinted that the foreigner decided to take his last step, knowing that death was inevitable and therefore, the hero might not be so saddened by his departure. Chun, in turn, was tired of this conversation, and the speech of his clone made itself felt, humiliating the man who gave his life to save the hero, and however, the spirit insisted that he was simply recording facts. The second voice told the guy that if the hero had been strong enough to avoid Isai in the arena, then they probably wouldn't have collided, and thus, if no one had attempted to kill the hero, Isai might not have met him. The guy agreed on this, and thus, he had only one way to strive to improve his skills by acquiring new strength. If he manages to become even more powerful, he will be able to overcome his fear that someone might encroach on his life or the lives of his loved ones, and this is how he will be able to provide protection to his loved ones. Suddenly, Wei burst into the room with disturbing news, and his little sister had just been hospitalized in critical condition. Her brother immediately went to the department where Linka was, and the comrade blamed himself for what happened, but in fact he had no opportunity to influence the course of events. Chun first went to the doctor, asking about the girl's condition, and at that time, her condition was stable, but doctors are powerless in the face of the mystery of the disease, unable to find its source. The overall picture seemed extremely sad, and with the current course of events, Linka might not even last a week. The boys were allowed to visit the girl, but she still had not regained consciousness, and the doctors strictly warned her that she should not be disturbed, as this could negatively affect her condition. When the friends entered the room, Linka was lying unconscious with an oxygen mask on her face, and it was clear from her painful expression that she was in severe pain. Wei realized that his friend needed to be alone with his little sister, so he offered to wait for him outside. As soon as the friend left, a snowflake immediately appeared, and she looked fine, but unfortunately the same couldn't be said for Link. The hero tried to reassure his second sister, assuring that Linka would soon recover and they could return home again. Suddenly the snowflake said that she wanted Chan to kill her, and the guy was amazed by such words and did not understand what it could even mean. The point was that the snowflake blamed itself for what happened, and perhaps the little ghost had drained all her energy, and if it hadn't been for her, everything might have been fine. Therefore, the younger sister, with tears in her eyes, asked her older brother to get rid of her, because they had no other choice. Unable to succumb to despair, the hero firmly decided that he could not commit such a terrible act, and the inner fire of his determination burned with renewed vigor as he swore to himself that he would definitely find a way to save everyone who was dear to him. Chan, excited and determined, left the ward, assuring himself that he would definitely come up with something that could change the current terrible situation, and he was ready to take extreme measures, even sacrificing his own life, just to save his sister's. Not wanting to waste time, the guy immediately picks up the phone and calls Shinyu, and he really wanted to know if that brilliant doctor had returned back to the country, but, unfortunately, it turns out that Shinyu is still outside his native land. Wei tries to be a support for his friend, comforting him with words that everything will definitely work out with his little sister, and however, Chun, who is in a stressful situation, asks to be left alone. However, taking on the entire burden of grief was a harmful activity, and the hero needed to find a way to cure Linka as soon as possible in order to restore her life and happiness. There was very little time left, and Chan, as before, was faced with a question that had no answer, and will he really have to make a terrible choice and get rid of the snowflake? And then, like lightning in a clear sky, Chun heard his inner voice again, and his second self asked if the owner had forgotten about him, and it turned out that he had information on how to cure Linka. At first the hero could not believe it, but an inner voice insisted that it was true, and moreover, if you perform all the steps correctly, the snowflake will not be harmed. But to do this, they first need to return home, and along the way purchase several necessary things. Sometime later, when it got dark outside, the guy found himself at home, and the stolen things, paints, brushes, and paper lay in front of him, and he was ready to begin the next stage of his plan. An important component of this whole mysterious puzzle turned out to be Huadian, and Chen admits that he still strongly doubted the effectiveness of its influence, but an inner voice convinced him to trust this unusual animal. At some point, a strange, sparkling hieroglyph lit up on Huadian's head again, and it was this sign that seemed to be the key to unraveling the cause of the disease. This time, after the appearance of an unusual sign, a mysterious pictogram appeared above the cat's head, as well as several scrolls with inscriptions. Moreover, even the hero's second self had no idea where Hwadian came from and what she really was, but her spells should have worked. The spells turned out to be scrolls with inscriptions, and Chan decided that he just needed to copy these inscriptions onto the paper he bought, and however, everything turned out to be not so simple. In fact, the paper was just a medium, and all the magic was in the aura surrounding these scrolls. Ordinary people could not sense this aura, let alone interact with it, but Chan was far from an ordinary person. Now he needs to use his talent and redirect the aura from one of the magic scrolls to a piece of paper. This can be compared to how Chan was able to interact with special energy in the last fight, and this was evidence of his unique abilities. Now, if the inner voice helps him, they will definitely be able to cope with this task, and I need to start right now to give my little sisters hope for recovery. The main character confidently took the brush into his hands, and for the first time decided to repeat the inscription from the scroll. However, suddenly the fire broke out. The guy was perplexed and could not understand why this happened, and he followed exactly the same steps as the previous time. As it turned out, he was in a hurry, releasing all the fiery energy at once, and that misunderstood fool was too hasty. The next dozen attempts were just as unsuccessful, and this turned out to be much more difficult than it initially seemed. After a few hours, the guy was covered in soot, and he couldn't imagine that drawing spells could be so dangerous. At some point it dawned on him that he was not achieving success because of his haste. He realized that he needed to calm down, adjust his breathing, and Chan should not forget about his main goal to save his little sister. Unfortunately, this time he failed to achieve success, and the hero had already lost count of his attempts. The paper caught fire again. Only after 10 hours did he finally manage to correctly direct the energy from the scroll to a piece of paper. However, an inner voice told him that this was still not suitable, and Chun flared up with anger. The spent nerves and strength seemed to him in vain. This time something went wrong. The main problem is that there is not enough energy, and it has not completed the work completely, and this scroll is not capable of completely healing Linka. Despite the incredible fatigue, the guy, seeing a snowflake before his eyes, went back to work, and he couldn't afford to leave her unattended. Chin picks up the brush again and intends to continue his efforts until he achieves the perfect spell. The scene takes us to the office of the director of the organization, where the hero came to Paul for an important conversation. One of the guards does not allow him to pass, because boxers like him cannot just enter and leave this place. But the guy arrived with an urgent matter. He urgently needs to communicate with the director of the organization, and this concerns life and death. The men didn't care. According to their rules, no one had the right to just walk into their boss's office. The debate continued for a long time, creating a huge noise that could be heard even inside the room. Paul became very angry because of this and asked in a loud voice what was happening outside, and at that moment, Chin walked inside. The guards tried to push him back, but he threatened to sue them for abusing an injured man. The director ordered the men to leave the office immediately, believing that these losers had already done enough damage, and now they can be free. Suddenly, the hero's gaze collides with a girl unknown to him, lying on the sofa in the office, as if nothing had happened. The guy became a little depressed, not expecting that there was anyone else here besides Paul, but in general, it doesn't matter. Finally, the director asked the hero what his important conversation was about, given that the man already had a lot to do. It turned out that the hero would like to fight, but his fights are already planned, and he must enter the ring 3 times, as agreed. However, Chun insists that he needs to fight this week, on which a person's life depends. At first, the director didn't even understand what we were talking about, and maybe the guy has gone crazy and it is absolutely unreasonable to go into battle after such injuries. But the hero claims that everything will be fine. He just needs a match in which there is an opportunity to win 150,000. At this point, Paul thought that this strange guy might have lost his mind, and maybe he hit his head hard in the last fight or something like that. However, this situation was in his favor, and he agreed to these conditions, and therefore, in 3 days he will arrange a corresponding duel for him. At this moment, the leader warns that if he receives more serious injuries in this match, no claims will be made against him. After this, Chun leaves, and Bai Ji keeps her eyes on him. Apparently, for some reason the girl is showing interest in this young man. Walking down the corridor, Chun thinks exclusively about the fact that he definitely needs to win the upcoming fight. Then he goes to his sister's room and sincerely apologizes to her for not being able to create the required scroll. It seems that now he is faced with the most difficult choice of his life, and he is ready to sacrifice everything to save both. However, his little sister calms him down, claiming that he is not to blame for anything, and she is ready to sacrifice herself for the sake of her friend. The guy apologizes again and promises to keep her in his memory until the end of his days, because she is extremely dear to him. Snowflake feels very lucky to have such a brother and is ready to make sacrifices for her loved ones. Suddenly the phone rings, which seems strange since there were no meetings scheduled with Chen. It turns out to be Tang Jiang, who claims that he is well aware of his sister's condition and knows how to help her. The man has already contacted specialists who can provide assistance to cure the girl, and they should arrive in the country this week. The guy was as happy as never before when he heard this news, and however, he was warned that such medical services are quite expensive. At first, the hero was confident that he could cover all expenses, but it turned out that he needed to collect as much as 150,000. Despite the difficulties, the guy swears that he will find all the money he needs, and it is no longer possible for him to go back. In case of difficulties, the man promises to help, but Chun replies that he has already done enough for him, and the guy must cope on his own. Chun hangs up and jumps for joy, and there was new hope for a happy life for his sisters. However, one problem remains. After treatment expenses, he only has 50,000 left of the 100,000 he earned in the previous fight. Luckily, he already has a fight scheduled for as much as 150,000 this week, and he just needs to win once and everything will be fine. Besides, he found a use for his scroll, and although it was imperfect, it can still be used for charitable purposes. With the help of this piece of paper, he manages to completely heal his hand, and now he will be able to properly prepare for the upcoming match. After successfully casting the spell, the cast could be removed instantly, and now all future events depended only on the hero. Suddenly, an inner voice began to ask him questions about what plans he was making, because if he were defeated in the upcoming battle, all his efforts could be in vain. However, the hero remained confident in his abilities, because he was a learning genius, and he had 3 whole days to prepare, and he was confident that he could cope with any challenge. Deciding to use the remaining money wisely, Chun decided to purchase special tonics to maximize his strength, and however, an inner voice warned him, and if his body could not stand it, then all this work could be in vain. Literally a few minutes later, the guy was already standing at the cash register with many boxes, and the Assyrian was amazed that he really intended to purchase all these goods. Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him, someone turning to him, asking if he had really come for medicine again. It turned out that this was the same man who called the hero in the morning, and he was a special customer of this store. Tang Jiang instantly recognized the guy and said his name, which confused Chun slightly. The man turned out to be a member of a fight club in the northern region and had been following the guy's skills for a long time, showing interest in his fighting abilities.